Greetings, and welcome to House of R, a Ringerverse podcast on the Ringer Podcast Network. I'm Mallory Rubin. Joining me today, there will be no horizon to the scope of her inquiry, nor will there be any limit to her effort. It's Joanna Robinson.
Oh, a little bit of ISB here at the start. Sounds like a good plan. Hello. What a thrill and an honor and a joy to be here with you to potentially break our record for longest podcast ever. We shall see.
It's entirely possible.
All right.
It's entirely possible.
Dare to dream.
I have heard that there's fast and there's good. So I take that as permission to potentially break our runtime record today. It is going to be a long one. It's going to be a Death Star-sized podcast, no question. So we are just going to zip through some quick programming reminders here at the top. What's coming up? On the Andor front, many people are asking, will you please revisit Rogue One? Guess what? The answer is yes, we will. We will be doing a Rogue One Revisited pod as our second episode next week in our usual Andor slot. We're going to be doing that like through the lens of Andor. Now that we have finished Andor, how do we experience Rogue One anew? How do we experience it differently? So we're really excited to revisit that film and talk about that together next week and keep the Andor good times rolling for a little longer because we are frankly not ready to stop talking about Andor. It's that simple.
I've heard, I really had to like restrain myself to, I was like, every time I had a Rogue One thought, and I have a few that snuck in, but I was like, save it for the Rogue One pod. But I heard from a lot of people that they just, did exactly what Tony Gilroy said to do, which was just plow right into Rogue One after. And I think this is not homework I'm going to assign to you, but I want to watch Rogue One, and I also want to watch A New Hope. That's that's
how does it all fit?
That feels
how does
like
it all feel?
The trilogy, Andor to Rogue One to A New Hope.
I love it. We will also, of course, continue to cover The Last of Us, a show that we are having a wonderful time diving deep into. We will be diving deep into episode 6 of The Last of Us on Monday evening here on the House of R, and the whole gang is continuing to cover the season. So the Midnight Boys, pew pew pew. We'll be covering Last of Us on Sunday night, right after the episode. The instant reaction will be up. The Watch will be checking in. Joe and Rob will have their latest interview and breakdown of the episode on Prestige on Thursday next week. And Button Mash will be checking in, Ben and Daniel, with the Gamer's Guide on Thursday as well for the penultimate episode of season 2.
Oh my God.
I know. I'm not ready to say goodbye to both of these shows.
We just rushed way too quickly through both of these incredible shows.
I know.
And now we have to wait until 2026 for A Night of the Seven Kingdoms.
I know. I could barely handle that update yesterday. Thank God for the group chat with you and Chris. It's the only thing that kept me going. All right, Joe, how can everybody follow along?
Yeah. Well, great question. Okay, listen. Follow the pod. I think that's a great idea. Watch us on YouTube and on Spotify. I think that's a great idea. Follow us on social. I think that's a wonderful idea. On TikTok, on Instagram, on Twitter, et cetera, et cetera. And email us, hobbitsanddragons@gmail.com. You sent us literally hundreds of Andor finale emails that I read blearily last night. Great stuff from all of you. Thank you so much. If you have further thoughts, if you have Rogue One thoughts, you can send those over to us and we will incorporate them into our pod next week. So fear not. There's a few of your emails that we sort of put aside to get into in our Rogue One chat next week as well. So thank you so much. Back to you in the studio, Mallory Rubin.
Here's the last programming reminder. It's the Friendly Neighborhood spoiler warning. We are, of course, going to be talking in great detail about these final 3 episodes of Andor. We will be talking about everything that's ever happened in Andor. Rogue One, as already noted, will come up today. Details from Rogue One will be coming up today. So if you have not seen Rogue One yet and want to watch that and then come back to the pod, we support that completely. And if it's ever happened in Star Wars, it could in theory come up today. All right. Joe, I do not know if you can fight as well as you lie, but I know that you can pod as well as you do anything. So let's get to it. It is time for the opening snapshot. I'll miss the Star Wars music. All right, Joe.
Too.
Arc 4, the 4th and final arc of season 2, the final season of Andor, the series finale episodes of Andor. We are talking today, it is just actually heartbreaking. We're talking today about episode 10, Make It Stop, episode 11, Who Else Knows, and episode 12, Jedha, Kyber, Erso.
Say it like Kleya.
So I got to work
Jedha,
up my
Kyber, Erso.
I got to work up into the frenzied state, which I will do shortly, no question about it. We have so much to get to today. I think there will be tears, without question, many times throughout the pod today. It's going to be an emotional one, and part of that is because of how good the show is, and part of that is because of how much we love the show. So let's just set the table before we begin our deep dive.
Yeah,
Joanna Robinson, how did you feel about these 3 episodes? How did you feel about season 2? And how did you feel about Andor overall?
Andor, it'll be really hard to top Andor as my favorite show of this year. I can't foresee anything topping it, but something could come out of nowhere and do that. Maybe my favorite show of the decade. Like I just can't possibly describe how joyous it has been to have this nutritious a serving of a story universe that we love so much. So vegetables with our with cheese of the IP that we love on top of it, just to make a delicious casserole. The joy of getting to read Ben Lindbergh's breakdowns, and so and have Ben text me do you think Kleya is Cassian's sister, stuff like that. To get text from Chris Ryan, to listen to Andy get excited about it. So to hear from our nerdiest of nerdy Star Wars pals and our what the hell is wrong with the state of IP pals, and we're all joined together in our love of Andor is truly joyous. And I also want to celebrate Andor as a TV show. Now I know we got these 3 episode arcs as sort of little mini movie drops, but the way in which Andor as a reactive piece of media to thinking about the stars of this final arc are people like Kleya, Lonni, Hirt. We got some great Will stuff in this season, etc. All these ways in which we can plant seeds in a season 1 and watch them blossom and grow as long as we dutifully water them like Cassian does into season 2 is one of the most joyful things about television. Watching threads grow and build and build and build, and our emotional investment in story build and build and build and build. And so, and the way in which Tony Gilroy as excellent showrunner on this, but also just all the other talented people that we've gotten to talk about in terms of the various writers for the various arcs, the various directors for the various arcs. Tom Bissell, who's the writer on this 3 episode arc, who also wrote the book The Disaster Artist, and has also written great memoirs about his dad in the Vietnam War, has been very sort of government and politics focused. So to bring his perspective into this, to have Alonso Ruiz Palacios as the director, who as Tony in his interview with Chris and Andy talked about sort of the extra special visuals of this last arc. And I really agree. There were just some distinctive, and we'll shout them out as we go, sort of just really distinctive framings and moments that made it feel visually special alongside the absolutely stellar performances that we always get, the absolutely stellar writing that we always get on this show. And I also want to shout out Sana Wollenberg, who is a figure that Tony credits and Diego credits, but who is a very key exec producer on this show, who Lonni or someone else doesn't get her praises sung as much. So we do a lot of shorthand when we praise Tony Gilroy, and we should, because showrunners matter, but it takes a village to make a TV show. And so there's all these incredible people involved, and I love celebrating their great work. To that end, the theme, I did not plan this, but here we go. The theme that I thought was most interesting in these final episodes, this idea of you can't do it alone. Who is alone and who an alliance, a rebel alliance, how hard that is, but how vital it is to have clashing perspectives inside of an alliance and to challenge each other and grow from each other, but also that you can't do something like this in isolation, I think was one of my favorites. And then also I will just shout out, something we've been tracking thanks in part to listener email, but also, just the show itself, this idea of the the messenger that you brought up last week, obviously a title of the episode in last week's arc, but also the relay race, right? And so thinking about this, the various like blinking signal lights that we get in here, Lonnie's light for Kleya, Kleya's light for Will, like what are these blinking signals that we're putting out into the universe and the desperate hope that someone will be listening, right? And then the way in which the baton in this stretch that they're passing, the information baton in this stretch that they're passing is like this poison baton. Like Partagas later will call it a disease as part of a cover story. But this idea that like, as soon as Lonni gets his Death Star information, he dies. As soon as Luthen gets it, he dies. I was really worried about Kleya, but like Cassian and Melshi will die soon after. Like, you know, and then when we watch, this is my Rogue One thing that I should save, but I'm not going to save. When we watch that final data get passed in the relay race at the end of Rogue One, and each person that touches it is cut down by Vader until they, then they pass it to the next one. It's just this idea of like, not just a relay race now, which is what we've been talking about this whole time, but like such a high stakes, poison pill, deathly relay race that everyone has made a choice. And that's another huge theme of this arc, but like the choice to touch it and to pass it and to know that in touching it will probably sign their death sentence in many cases. I love this TV show. I love this arc of episodes. I do think that overall in the season, I think the Gorman arc was the height of the season for me, which is not to say I have any major critiques about these last three. I think the Luthen Kleya episode 10 was like absolutely top tier. But I do think there's just some, as we pass the baton over to Rogue One, I do think there's some little like, little bumps and hiccups along the way there that make, similar to the end of season 1, the end of Andor not as ecstatic as the middle of Andor, which is fine. It's like a slow start, this sort of like middle six, orgasmic television experience, and then the cool down in the final 3. And I think I will desperately miss this show, and I will desperately miss talking to you about this show. So those are my snapshot thoughts. Yeah.
Same. Yeah. I thought this was really extraordinary. Like, I thought this was an incredible conclusion to a really remarkable television show. I didn't know how season 2 could possibly measure up to season 1, especially with the task of marching not just closer to, but directly into Rogue One. And so like, this is just the platonic ideal and beyond that of what, not only how to execute a prequel, but why to do one in the first place, like what the proposition even is, and what moving across a wide story universe and seeking to extend or expand canon can do when it's done right and handled with care, and when there's a real vision for what to say and what to explore about a person's life and their relationships together. I'm with you completely. That idea of the message in the relay race entwined with the idea of the need to unite and the alliance, and how hard that really is, and how many people who even were a part of pushing that and fueling it couldn't do it at the end, which makes us appreciate even more when it actually happens.
Yeah.
I was struck so keenly by the moment between Hirt and Dedra. No friends, right? No friends at all. And that there is not a single more meaningful contrast to draw between
I have friends
sides.
everywhere.
I have friends everywhere, and the ability to make your way home somehow, even if you don't think you can.
Yeah.
And the depth of despair in the show that we reach, the darkest points we ever went to. You could think of a number of them because it was quite grim along the way. But something like nobody's listening on Narkina. As a contrast to knowing when you send that call, someone will be there. Like, it's just incredible. And
or hoping that they'll be there and
believing.
Trying.
Exactly. Trying was the other big theme to me of this entire experience. Yeah. Like, Nemec's manifesto was such a thrill to not only hear his voice, but obviously like that manifesto has always been on our minds. I'm like already crying. I didn't think it would start quite this early, though. I can't say I'm shocked. I think it'll be waterworks today. This is going to be a very emotional experience talking about the story that we love. The end of that manifesto, that particular chunk of the manifesto, try, like remember, try. I mean, I remember that we talked about in season 1 how meaningful and notable it felt that is a very different idea from a kind of sacred Star Wars pillar,
do or do
right?
not,
Or High Yoda, do or do not, there is no try. And that with Nemec's message and words and the actions really of everybody of consequence. And of course, so much of the mission of the story is to explain to us and show us how many people of consequence there really are who will never see the sunrise or who will never feel the gratitude, right?
Lonni,
my God. But who did something as crucial as Luke firing that final decisive shot. And none of it happens if they don't try. Like that, so much of this is about trying and just giving a shit and attempting to make the world a little better. And I mean, what an incredibly powerful thing. And the writing, the craft of the filmmaking, the performances, the way the world is rendered. I mean, so many things in these 3 episodes just hit me like incredibly hard. I can't wait to talk about my beloved, beautiful bee returning. Really can't. But one of the things, unsurprisingly, probably that really like walloped me was that little moment and that little conversation between Kleya and Cassian about just the idea of an ending and like that nothing's ending and that's really part of the magic of a great story, right? It's like not just that you can always go back into that story and that world and know that you can share it with other people who loved it too, but also like one of the incredible things about Andor is like what a miracle it is on its own. And then also how it enriches for us this other wider, bigger thing that we already cared so deeply about. And that is just really rare and really precious. And so like, you already said it, right? You don't just want to go rewatch Rogue One. You want to go rewatch New Hope. And after you finish that, you're going to want to do something else. And it's like, that's the best feeling in the world. And so there were like a lot of great, really fun things. Everyone should watch Tony Gilroy's wonderful interview with Chris and Andy on The Watch. There were a lot of incredible insights and wonderful things about that. And it's always really fun to watch the 3 of them talk. But, you know, when Gilroy was just talking about the industry and making something like this and making something at all, and said, you know, people clearly need stories. It's an essential need.
They need them bad. They need them bad is what he said.
Like you feel that with, I think, the response to Andor in a way that feels so keen and so meaningful. And like, I just feel really fortunate that we got to share it together and got to share it now. And I look forward to revisiting it for the rest of my life as a Star Wars fan. That's just the best feeling when you finish something and you know, like, it's going to be a part of your experience of loving a thing forever. It's just the best. So I can't believe it's over, but I mean, it's not. We have a few hours ahead of us still. But, you know, what an incredible thing.
On the nature of prequels, I think it's so interesting to think about. Thank you for sharing that. I love you so much. And I can't wait to cry with you for 4 hours. Are you hydrated? Are you ready?
I have a decent amount of water and some tissues, but you know, who knows?
I was struck thinking about every time they were like, Tivik's calling.
Yeah.
And Tivik, if you haven't seen Rogue One ever or haven't seen it in a while, is a person that Cassian goes to meet right at the beginning of Rogue One, right? So like this, Tivik is calling means Rogue One is calling.
Yeah, exactly.
Which means like that movie is knocking on the door of this show, like for the last arc. And, you know, you hear Galen Erso, you hear Adu, you hear, like, you just keep hearing that movie knocking. It reminded me of, it reminded me of End of Time, the Doctor Who, the last Doctor Who arc, right? Where it's like, he'll knock 3 times. You keep hearing this knocking sound, which is the destined end of that Doctor. And so it's just sort of like Tivik's knocking, Scarif's knocking. Like, and it's just like, and that's the way in which a prequel, in the best version of a prequel, can work, because a lot of prequels, sorry, this is where I'm going to shit talk your favorite solo Star Wars story, but like a lot of
hashtag make Solo 2 happen. It's not too late.
A lot of prequel movies feel like they're trying to knock on the door of this thing you already love, and they're like, let us into. You love Harrison Ford as Han Solo, so let us in. That's you know. but that's not like what you should feel is the destiny looming and the thing, the events that are coming, knocking on the door of the story that you're witnessing. And that's what I felt like with Andor sort of all along, certainly, but in this final 3-episode arc, of course, certainly. And I just, this idea of story baton as well, like passing the story baton over to Rogue One, to A New Hope, to yada, yada, yada down the line, is just so, I need these stories. I need them bad. I know. It's tough times, and we need these stories. Yeah.
Should we dive deep? Deep. Oh boy. Okay.
Can I ask you? Wait. Yeah. We're right at the start. This is the BB-wise question, right? We're right on the verge of Rogue One.
Yep.
Did I count correctly that we kind of slightly cheated the 3-day in that we extended the night of day 2 takes up a lot of this arc. It is nighttime in day 2 for a lot of this arc, and then we just get morning is broken. The break of dawn at day 3 is the end of this arc. Would you agree?
Bale, the guy you don't like, is here. It's great stuff from day 2 coming in to disrupt a very, very, very painful dream and fitful night of sleep from Cassian. I think that's right. Yeah, it was amazing to see that overall, though, that the these are the days, you know, these are the days of the year that get us to where we need to be. Like, it's just an incredible structural concept and way to do this. Really, like, it's unbelievable. And speaking of structure, we're going to do this like slightly differently today, maybe actually in a more conventional way. We always usually on House of our Deep Dives go just through the episodes in order. But for Andor, because it's 3 episodes a week and it's been so much, we've been kind of clustering by character set or plot line. These 3 episodes, though, mostly do need to be like considered in order. And so we are actually going to go through the episodes in order with a little bit of rearranging and clustering inside of each episode. So we are going to talk about episode 10 first, then episode 11, then episode 12, which means that we will not be talking about Cassian Andor for a hot second here, because he is not in episode 10.
The only Andor episode of Andor that does not have Cassian Andor.
You have to be so confident that you have something fucking great to do that. And guess what?
They do.
They had something fucking great, because episode 10 was amazing. The first couple scenes of this episode are just extraordinary. Absolute god tier stuff. Let's start with our beloved Lonni, who is here to share the Endgame. This is what Luthen wanted. What's the Endgame? I need the Endgame. Here it is. That alarm in the gallery blares. Kleya emerges in her pajamas. I always love these reminders that they're living there, just bunking in the Fondor in the back or up in the loft. Yeah. An emergency call, right?
We spend so much time on just the beeping and the blinking of the light, that signal that we're tracking.
There's no more time for subtlety, right? For leaving a little symbol on the rail and walking through the path. And is somebody reaching out? And when is their time to meet? It's like, all hands
we're ringing
on
the big bell.
Deck now. We rung the big bell, and it's okay if everybody knows. Kleya gets the blaster set. Luthen readies his disguise. I love just the ritual one more time of putting on the wig and putting on the rings. We are going to shatter the Wig Watch record today, by the way. We have multiple distinct hair segments for you coming today.
Mirror watch, right? Luthen looks at himself in the mirror one last time. But yeah, there's the like shoving on of the rings. This sort of like, because later we'll see Cassian arm up, strap the blaster on, etc. At the end of the last episode. But yeah, here's Luthen's armor, his rings and his wig and his fancy cloak.
I know, and incredible then later when we actually see him in military garb and the actual armor and the plates on his legs, and like just think about
the worst wig you've ever seen in your entire life.
Just, laying a little trail for you. You had watched these before me, and you told me, a couple of things, that they were incredible.
Yeah.
And then there was like the most astonishing wig that we had yet confronted. I don't know. I didn't guess a character. I should have, but I don't know if I would have guessed Luthen.
What did you think when you saw it? Were you like, well, there it is?
Immediately. You told me, you're like, you will know the second you see it. There will be no question. And you were
This
correct.
is a masterpiece. What a masterpiece of a show. This is a minor quibble. We'll get there.
I can't wait. Kleya says to Luthen, tell me you're ready. They're going to meet at the old steps. Oh no, is there construction there? Okay, it doesn't matter. There's no time for alternatives. We have, again, this idea of the rush and the ticking of the clock. And this connects to what you were saying a few minutes ago about how Rogue One is knocking and you can feel it. Like, I was thinking a lot watching these episodes about how unbelievably impressive it is that the show has achieved what should be impossible, which is it feels like the characters have the same insights that we do, but they don't.
Right.
We actually know.
The time is running out.
We actually know that Rogue One is coming in mere days, and we know what is happening there, and we know what it all means, and we know that the window is finite and tiny and shrinking and closing, and not everyone is going to make it through. They don't know that, and yet they can feel it just as keenly as we can. And I just thought that was incredible and really, like, not only amplified the tension and heightened it, but the sense of a shared experience, which was the other thing that was so incredible. I mean, I'm going to just lose it when we talk later about Cassian and Vel toasting the dead. But that was another example in a very different tonal way of, like, we are just in that scene with the people who are experiencing this thing. I just can't believe it.
I just teared up thinking about him saying Cinta and her saying Marv, like your mother.
It's too much. It's almost too much to bear. I just like can't handle it. Oh my God. Kleya hands Luthen the blaster that he's going to use on Lonni and says, promise me if it doesn't look perfect, you won't engage. And I'm going to ask you to do something right now. I want you to make a prediction. How many times on this podcast will I, your co-host, say, this is the best line in Star Wars history?
There's this line from Rogue One where Casey says, there's a problem on the horizon. There is no horizon. Yeah. And that's how I feel.
We can just see the rock of Jedha City coursing towards us.
We used up all the perfect.
Luthen saying, I think we used up all the perfect is one of the best things that I've ever heard on television.
Yep.
This was just unbelievable, not only because it is gorgeous writing and just like pantheon stuff from a story crafting perspective, but because of the shared history, which we have not yet seen in full, that is still coming in this episode, that it hints at and that it captures everything that they've done together, everything that they've tried, all of the sadness, but also the love and the pride, because that smile and the tenderness in Luthen's expression as he looks at her, this really reminded me of what you were observing beautifully last week about the different phases of a rebellion, right? Seasons for different things, moments for different things, and different people and different styles. And that Kleya and Luthen have been a part of all of that together. And this is the moment to say, I think we've used up all the perfect.
And how Kleya has always believed, like, you know, if Luthen's like, our time has come, and Kleya's like, yeah, our time is over. And then the fight that it takes for Andor to be like, Kleya, you've got more chapters. You know, like this is not your final chapter. It might be Luthen's, but it's not yours. And how hard it is for her to accept that there is like a road without Luthen on it, because they've been walking together side by side since the beginning. I love that. And I also love, you know, Tony, to Chris and Andy on the Watch, and in a number of other interviews, has talked about how Luthen is like his comp in the show, his closest comp. And this idea of like, we used up all the perfect, like we worked so hard on this show for so long. We grew fields of rye for this show. Like, and we are like, knowing his limit in advance, knowing I can't do this for 5 seasons, but I've used up all the perfect. I've done it for 2 seasons, and here we are. It's just so good.
There were a number of lines like that felt deeply meta that I really, really loved.
Melshi had time for Melshi to step up.
That was great. I have some questions for you about Melshi's Revnog intake when we get a little deeper into the pod. Some worrying stuff.
I think his Revnog intake helped in that moment when he's in the spotlights of all the guns, and they're like, "Don't move," and he's like,
I'm just gonna go back in.
Just gonna move.
Good chat, but I'm just gonna pop right back in. Great stuff. Speaking of moving, that's the next thing we hear. This meaningful look between them, and Luthen smiling and saying gently, move. And we will learn via the flashbacks that are to come in this episode what that calls upon, what that one word means to him. And I was thinking about how across the series, especially in season 1, but across the series, we heard a lot about vows. The characters taking vows and making vows. And like,
swear and swear.
They make you swear and swear, Joe. That this word for Luthen and Kleya is their vow to each other. That they will push each other and argue and always say what they really think, which we've very much enjoyed watching over 2 seasons of television.
Yeah.
But that when the moment comes and you utter that word, the person on the other side knows what it means, and you are on a shared plane of understanding with each other that other people do not inhabit with you. Like, to be able to convey all of that in one word is just remarkable.
And to your point, it's only on rewatch that we get the full depth of it.
This is why I'm already like, every year. We did get a lot of feedback from people who are like, obviously it's a May the 4th thing. Like, come on, guys. It's not hard to figure out the time. It's like, yeah, okay.
When do you watch Andor?
Sorry.
But
we haven't been sleeping a lot.
But you drafted Chris Ryan into this rewatch project. Amazing.
With ease.
Yeah. Actually, quite quickly.
He was ready. He was ready. We get a little bit of vintage Kleya stuff here when she smiles in response and says what?
Tuck in your shirt.
I just love that one more moment's like question. Who are they to each other? How did they get to this point to each other before we actually got those answers? I thought it was great. Joanna. We see our guy Lonni striding into the park. Luthen arrives. He's hovering by the bench. Now, we talked last week. I was bumping a little bit in episodes that I thought were astonishing and absolutely adored. And were 3 of my favorite episodes of television ever. On like, okay, what does it mean if Luthen is just standing there talking to Mon Mothma and Kleya and Cassian? They're all out there together. Here, I did not feel that because here I understood what this meant to Luthen and what it was supposed to mean to us, which is like, there's no more reason to hide. The big clock is about to stop ticking. The big bell has rung. But we did get some emails about this.
Okay, first and foremost, I want to say that according to StarWars.com, this bench is under the bridge between the Palau de las Artes Reina Sofia in Spain that we already mentioned was used for the Senate building that we saw Mon escape from. So if you want to go in Valencia, right? If you want to go to that building and go under the bridge and leave some flowers for Lonni at that bench, I think it'd be so beautiful if like Lonnie's bench became a place for Star Wars fans to like
Will and Lyra's
something.
Bench?
Yeah. Okay. Aaron wrote this, and I just want to shout out the Bad Babies who wrote us deeply thoughtful emails, and then some of them wrote us very hilarious emails, and this is a really good one. Aaron wrote, I would just like to ask why, in a galaxy comprised of a wide variety of life forms with a wide variety of appearances, are we, and by we, I mean super spies, Luthen, Kleya, Cassian, etc., just walking around doing super spy missions with our whole faces out? Can we not commission someone to make us some Wookiee suits or Rhodian masks or something? Could Luthen not slap on a set of head tails and some green makeup before chilling on a bench for all to see with a goddamn ISB agent? A Saw Gerrera style breather mask at the very least.
Some Rido huffing.
So, Aaron, thank you so much for pitching Mission Impossible Coruscant. I look forward to your pilot pitch to Lucasfilm. Yeah, why aren't we wearing masks in Star Wars? I support it.
Some fake, can do it. Facial hair, at least. You know?
That's so, like, but...
Varian Sky could have had a great goatee.
Well, follow question. Is it like racially insensitive to paint yourself green in
I think it's not
Star
green.
Wars? Yeah,
that's why I'm going with facial hair.
Green face is out. Okay, got it.
That's why I'm going with facial hair. Yeah,
got it.
But the point is noted that some ramping up of the disguise, maybe a little Bobby Valentine, mustache and fake nose and glasses, a little baseball dugout. I've been ejected, but I'm still hanging around. Kind of a
definitely
thing.
Know that reference. The reference that I did get. Having them meet on this bench here is such a good classic, like, two competing agents from different organizations feed the ducks in a park, like from a spy movie moment. I loved it so much. And Lonnie's in his like spy movie trench coat. Like, it's just, it's so good.
I was waiting for Jackson Lamb to show up and remark that we just learned that you can wash a coat. Yeah. Lonnie's kind of surprised Luthen game. He's like, I didn't know if you would. Just every little moment is carrying so much here. Luthen's like, let's hear it, man. I'm here. You know,
Yeah.
the gesturing, and he'll gesture to let Dedra in later. Here's what we learned from Lonni. Speaking of Dedra, contacted a friend of Lonnie's in Tactical. I have friends everywhere. She's assembling a team and is working on a Coruscant op. And her reputation as a rule bender led this friend to reach out to Lonni to be like, yeah, I think this is safe. Tough stuff for Dedra just across these episodes.
I mean, bad news for everyone in Tactical who was involved in the Luthen grab. Like, do you think they all went to Narkina? What do you think?
That's a great question. I don't know. I feel like just a lot of this fell on Dedra. But I don't know. The whole thing is kind of crumbling, actually, by the end. So, yeah, when Krennic says death, ISB death march, it I think implies that basically everybody's fucked. Dedra most of all, but really all of them. Lonnie's deduction here is she's coming for you. It's time. She's coming for you. But he can't confirm because he can't reach back out because he's been burned. And Luthen's response to that is not, are you okay? Oh, my God. You need a shoulder to cry on. It's, what have you done? Which I loved because this is the guy who has told Lonni, you can't leave. Lonni has tried to get out of this before, and Luthen has said, I need all the heroes I can get, right? So of course this would be his response. Not only the threat to himself, but like, what does it mean to lose your great resource, your ISB plant, your man on the inside?
In season 1, Luthen's like, Lonni,
yeah,
you're worth more than 30 men and Krieger combined.
Yeah.
And guess what? This season, Lonni has proved him absolutely correct.
Yeah. Eat shit, Anton Krieger.
Every arc, Lonnie's like, guess what?
I know. It's incredible.
I have something very important to share with you. This is really, it's 3 days. You know, Tony was talking to Chris and Andy about this. He's like, well, people bump on how much happens over the course of these 3 days every couple of years. And I'm not bumping on it at all, but like, I really feel like it's the 3 most important days of Lonnie's year. Every year is what we're experiencing, in addition to everything else. Cassian goes on a number of missions, but Lonnie's like, guess what I got? Intel galore. Let's go.
Certainly the most important days for here. You know, got to try some great cocktails at a fancy party, then got used as a human shield and shot 6 times in the chest.
The way he's swinging.
Astonishing stuff. A lot of poetic ends in these episodes, but here it was high on the list.
Our friend of the pod, Matt Midovich, wrote in. He was like, Matt was basically like, as a short king myself, like, do you think that Matt's more like a medium king, but he was like, do you think they intentionally surrounded Hirt by like the tallest tactical team they could find walking down that hallway, and then they're like, you can tuck in, sir.
Tuck in. Tuck in was tough. Tuck in was tough. Hide like a baby, sir. Yeah. We've got it from here. We love a short king. We do not love Hirt. And I don't know if you've heard this before, but we don't love fascism. So took us longer today than usual to say that. That's because Cyril's not around anymore. That's really how you know. It's true. That's the true sign that Cyril's gone. Is it took till the 40-minute mark to mention that we don't. I really missed him. I know. Me too. We still will find ways to bring him up today. No question. Lonni says that he has figured out what they've been chasing. But before he tells Luthen what it is, he's got a bargain. And like, Luthen's kind of like, are you fucking kidding me, man? And I was like, yeah, Lonni, do it. Of course you have to bargain. And it turns out it didn't matter that he bargained, but I appreciate you have to try. Like Nemec says, you got to try. His wife and daughter, he's got him tucked away and he wants to know how we're going to get them off of Coruscant. And this was just very sad because, of course, it takes us back to the iconic Luthen-Lonni scene in episode 10 and like the way that Luthen brought up fatherhood and the daughter as a way to basically say to Lonni, I always know what's happening in your life, whether you have told me or not. And that heart-wrenching moment, especially now that we've spent more time with Lonni, like to go back when we hear him say like, I had no idea how it would feel. I think it's just going to fucking shred us and destroy us every time we watch it from here on. And I'm wondering, like, are they okay? Don't worry. They're on Mina Rao. Everyone's fine on Mina Rao. Everything is fine on Mina Rao. Do you think they were like, we grew all this rye, we just have to use this set once more?
I think they did such a good job establishing Talia as like the nicest, warmest, most comforting person ever, and that they're just like, let's send everyone to meet a Rao. Don't worry about it.
If she's good enough for B, it's good enough for everyone else. Okay, I like it. What did Lonni steal, Joe?
Dedra's code cert.
This is just frankly brutal for Dedra.
For a year.
Oh my God.
AKA since last week on Andor. He has had Dedra's code cert. And he kept that from Luthen, right? He's like, I knew if I told you, you'd push me to use it. And I think that's so interesting because, like, as you note in our doc here, like, this idea of, like, we've used up all the perfect, like, Lonni knows that the clock is ticking and that Luthen is pushing for faster and faster, more and more reckless behavior. Right. And Lonni only made this move because he knew Luthen was about to get got and he probably couldn't stop it. Yeah. And if Luthen got, then that was his death sentence anyway. So, there we go.
Yeah, it was interesting to think about to your week year point from a second ago, how like it's 2 weeks since we've seen you used to tell me to wait, those days are gone exchange between them. But it's been 2 years, since the second arc of Lonni, like feeling that ratcheting up of the pressure and making every decision through that lens of like, anticipating what the response will be to whatever he shares, and just all of the things that he was carrying every day. Like I'm really glad Lonni made it this far. I'm amazed. As you know, I was very worried about him every step of the way. Like this is just, I can't wait to brag about our shared favorite Kleya, who did one of the most incredible things that we've ever seen. But as you already noted, like what Lonni has achieved here is titanic, is historic.
Once again, that bench is under the bridge.
Should we go? What would we
pilgrimage should pull out? Yeah.
What would we leave for Lonni? That's the question.
Great question. Some ginger to honor his ginger icon status.
Could do that. Maybe like a little mini elevator, a little lift,
a little mustache,
a little mustache on the little lift that he used to ride to meet Luthen. That sounds nice.
Luthen says, this is to your point about time. Dedra Meero has been hunting Luthen for 5 years.
5 years. Yep.
You and I have been podcasting together for like what, 3 years? 3.5?
3.5. Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine if you were looking for one person this whole time and then add more time to that. And that's wild. How much Dedra fucked up her time to shine.
I know. It's a tough one. It's a tough end for Dedra, who is rotting away in Narkina, where she belongs, to be honest.
We don't like fascists, so.
Where she belongs. Have we said it before? Hasn't come up. This is where we get that there's fast and there's good moment from Luthen, which was just great stuff and very rich. And again, another meta line, certainly.
Yeah.
And Lonni dives in and shares this thing that he has discovered.
Luthen says, I think it's here, maybe, hopefully my notes were accurate, but he also says, you're not the only one who'll be running. We're in this together, what we're up against. Like, Luthen is offering him fake fellowship here, right?
Exactly.
He's lying to him with fake fellowship, but like that offer of real fellowship, which will come via like Vel for Kleya, all the people who are reaching out for Kleya. Melshi is reaching out for Kleya. Everyone's reaching out for Kleya to try to wrap her in. And that's like just the difference between them ultimately, even though they are cut from the same cloth.
How it twisted him along the way, right? As we hear Cass say later, like, and really love the way that these episodes made so much room for the totality of who Luthen is. It's just obviously the mission of the show is to be able to do that, and they did it beautifully at the end. So Lonni shares what we, of course, as viewers have known, which is Stardust, right? The energy program is a lie. Palpatine's a liar. Turns out Palpatine's a liar. Great stuff later on Yavin when they're like, oh, we know all about that energy program. And then Mon's like, yeah, but like none of the details.
We've been funding it without details or oversight. Right.
Tough one there for all of the senators. Gorman, a front for minerals. Jedha, Kyber crystal hunt. Not a partisan hunt. The public order. The labor camps. Scarif. Orson Krennic's been building a secret weapon for over a decade. We're hitting all of our keywords to lead to Rogue One, A New Hope, the destruction of the first Death Star. And like,
do you think by labor camps is that Narkina? Like that's essentially what Narkina is.
Yep. Yeah. The camps where they're constructing these parts of the
pieces of the
Death Star in the larger machine. Like we know what they're going to learn in these episodes because they have to, right? We know, like you said, what we're moving toward, and so for it to still like work is just incredible.
Well, what's interesting to me is like on the one hand they have to, but on the other hand, in Rogue One they get that information from Tivik, right? So like there was real suspense for me of like, yes, they are going to get this information.
Yeah.
And having it is what puts Cassian and the folks at Yavin in a place to like take this even more seriously and all this sort of stuff like that. But I was like, am I watching the kind of show where like Kleya's going to die before she can tell anyone? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I wasn't
for sure. Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
I did wonder that too. Like, oh my God, is Luthen going to learn, but will they not be able to share it? And will we have these like parallel discoveries that don't actually overlap, which would have been very interesting to watch as well. But I really ended up enjoying this aspect of, we had this elsewhere in the doc, but I think, it certainly, I think some people could bump on, okay, well, like, because a lot of the information, about Bodhi and then the Hollow and everything Galen shares, like, does come in Rogue One. Does it feel like Luthen should have died for related information to something that is established in another story? But I really loved this because, like you mentioned, it to me like enriches then the response that we see from all characters in Rogue One. Not only like somebody like Cassian who is sprung into action and there with Tivik, and when he hears Erso, Galen Erso, and you're like, oh shit! Erso. Now we know like how he knows that name.
He's like, I've heard Kleya say that 20 different times at least.
Yeah, exactly. Multiple rundowns of all of the keywords being told onto. But like, Pamela and Jebel and these people who are so staunchly like defiant in the face of this threat, when you then see in these episodes, like, oh, this is who they are. It clarifies something that I always thought was kind of like baffling in Rogue One. And I
how resistant.
Also, like, wouldn't this be the most serious thing that you had ever heard? Wouldn't you feel a compulsion to act? And, this, I think the other thing is connects to your opening note about this core theme, like the idea that, especially in episodes where Luthen's lack of a tether to the people who are running Yavin is so central, and then people like Will and Cass and Kleya have to be the ones to say out loud, like, none of this exists without him. I just loved that he was a part of this thing, and that it like all of them were a part of it together, and that's what an alliance is, and that's what a rebellion is. I thought that was really cool. And just to like never watch anything that has to do with a Death Star again without being able to think about Luthen and Kleya is like amazing.
And
to
Lonni.
Me. And sweet Lonni, who I already forgot just now. But you will not forget Lonni, and I love that. And dude, like, on the Lonni front, like you said, when we think about like all the stuff that he has been offering up, man, he's the one who was like, so there's this riser, Dedra Miro, right? Axis, Gorman, Dedra's running Gorman, Bail Organa's like rescue team, I have a note. The fucking Death Star. Like,
my favorite thing about Bail Organa's team, I have a note, is actually I put her there.
Yeah.
Letting you know,
Young's agent.
I had to put someone on Bail Organa's team. One of my favorite Bail moments in these episodes is when Cassian's like, last time I talked to Luthen was when I rescued Mon Mothma from the Senate, and Bail's like, duly noted. Fucking noted, Cassian.
I liked when he was like confirming with Draven, like, okay, so the ship returning, this is Andor, and he did this, and then Draven's like, you can say that, and Bail's just like, incredible. Hysterical.
And he did it all wearing Bail's truly hideous cloak that he had in Rogue One. They really saddled
fashion notes.
They saddled Benjamin Bratt with that dumb cloak that like can't really maneuver his shoulders in. Anyway,
but on the flip side, we have we're swimming in some of Cassian Andor's best vests and jackets. So that is a gift.
I can't wait to talk about Will. Okay,
that is a gift. But like, Lonni just. We can't think about the history of Star Wars and the history of the galaxy without thinking about Lonni. And isn't that amazing? And I'll be thinking about Lonni
forever.
Will be. Well, I remember we'll see. But like the work that the show has done to genuinely radically alter how we think about the people who have had an impact on the state of play is really remarkable and amazing. I love it.
And we talked about this a bit in previous weeks, but I just think that like, especially in contrast to the way in which it feels like elsewhere in the Lucasfilm story world, they want to connect a lot of things back to the Skywalkers, back to Palpatine. They feel sort of like jammed up in this idea of special family lineage and stuff like that. And then it's just sort of like, it was a ginger named Lonni who worked at the ISB who was like, hey, this fascism thing seems not very good. And we recruited him and he went from there. And that's, very Broom Boy of them. And I love it.
We love Broom Boy. This is a very pro Broom Boy podcast. Always has been, always will be. Should we also rewatch Last Jedi?
Sure.
Should just do it all.
Any day.
Luthen asks, what kind of weapon? You got any details on the weapon? And Lonni pushes again to know where he's going to take them. And Luthen, eyes wide. This is some of the widest eyed stuff we've seen from Luthen. Yavin. What is that? Which I loved. Like, what do people know and what don't they know, even when they are this crucial, right?
And Lonni repeats it like sort of rapturously. Yavin.
The promise of Yavin and the lore of it, and then the way that it is actively like rejected by someone like Kleya later. Yeah. What a bitter ending.
What a better end.
Holy
Yavin,
shit.
That's to be my sanctuary.
Oh my lord.
She's just a city girl. What are you going to do in the jungle, you know?
Yeah, the mean streets of Coruscant. Wait till she meets some of the Maya Pei Brigade dipshits who have been
how devastated that we did not get a Maya Pei Brigade checkup in the final closing montage.
Here's the thing. It can just all be headcanon for us.
Okay.
Nothing is off the table.
I think they went to Scarif,
personally. I support you. I believe that Cinta turned the car over and Take Home fell out, and I believe that the Maya Pei Brigade made it to Scarif, and I want these things to be true for you.
I saw like a power ranking of Andor Season 2 characters on the subreddit, and it was really, really funny. And all the categories were just like kind of broad, sort of like delighted they had more screen time, blah, blah, blah. And the last one was like, reason why they discontinued that model of space taxi, and it was just Take Home. And I was like, what this chart presupposes is that Take Home had died because Cinta flipped it upside down. I was like, it's catching fire. The message is out there.
Again, your impact is real. And it is felt and seen and measurable, I think, right now.
Thank you.
Oh, God. I thought I was so thrilled every time somebody spoke up to tout Luthen and celebrate what he had done. And we will be doing that a lot today. I also thought that Luthen using this sacred place, a symbol to Star Wars, Lonni might not know what it is, but we do, a symbol to Star Wars fans of like the possibility of rebellion. Mm-hmm. As a false carrot to manipulate him into sharing what he needs before Luthen will then shoot him in the chest. To be everything that I have loved about watching Luthen Rael as a character, and so fucking grim and dark. And this is what we've been talking about since the first pod we did on Andor. Like a character, and we have many of them, but Luthen is obviously number one on the call sheet here, who shows us that you will do anything that is necessary, right? Condemn to use the tools of my enemy.
Burn your decency.
Here it is. I mean, my God. Whew. Lonni had to sacrifice everything at the end, Joe. That was the choice Luthen made.
The way we don't see him do it, we just see Luthen walk away.
And then the slumped form on the bench.
The canted angle of Luthen walking down the stairs is, again, one of those like visual twists that we don't often get in an Andor episode. And then we get this, the score is swelling. We get the reveal of Lonnie's body. And then
sweet little pics discovering Lonni.
Yes.
Great to get a little Tuca moment. Wonderful.
A Tuca cat. Is it a cat? A Tuca? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Close enough. And then like we get the hurrying down the stairs, but then we get a direct walk towards camera. And it's the first of many that we'll get in this episode. And I've been talking from the beginning about the idea of the long walk in Andor. And we get a couple, like, I would say Kleya through the levels of the hospital. But of course, the big long walk is Cassian on the way to the ship, and like all the things he passes on his way, the Force healer, Melshi, like blah, blah, blah. And hearing Tony tell Chris and Andy that final sequence, the walk to the ship, was always meant to be the final sequence. That's so the cool thing they knew, that they were going to end with this long walk. And so you get to then like play it back through the season. And if you go back to the first episode, after Cassian shoots those guys, is we get a walk of like a grim hero walk towards camera. And not all of these long walks have been walk towards camera. Often actually they're back of the head walks, but we get this Luthen hero walk towards camera. We'll get a Kleya walk towards camera. We'll get another Cassian walk. There's just like a lot of like hero stride toward camera moments in these last. And I just like, again, thinking of it as like a
B rolling toward us.
Of course, obviously, Perrin rolling in his cab. Just kidding.
Should we halt our plans and just do the whole plot on Perrin?
Perrin's midlife crisis earrings.
Genuine no-note stuff.
Like Davos' wife, the decanter, all of that. But for me, it was the added touch of like he pierced his ears.
Yeah, the new hair doing the earring was just astonishing.
But yeah, this idea of like, we've been on this path the whole time. We've been every step was a step towards this moment of Cassian getting on that ship, flying off to meet Tivik, but then Jyn Erso, and then everything that comes out of Tivik. We won't forget you, but then Jyn Erso and everything. And speaking of Tivik,
gathering as we go, right? Gathering as we go, as the Force Healer said.
How can we not be thinking about Cassian and Tivik when we realize what Luthen has done to Lonni here, right?
Lonni didn't even get to say that he couldn't climb out of there.
My arm.
Just completely deceived. It was heartbreaking. Like, in that wonderful episode 10 scene, when Lonni said, like, my sacrifice means nothing to you. And I believe every single word that Luthen said in response, which is, I said I think about you constantly, and I do. Your investment in the rebellion is epic. A double life, everyday performance, the stress of that. We need heroes, Lonni, and here you are. He believed that. He knew it was true. He knew how important it was. And then he still made this decision because the moment had come, and he was always the person who said to, whether it was Kleya or Cass or anyone, Mon, there's always something else you can do. And he believed that until the moment that he put that bleeder into his gut. And even then, that was his version of, there's always something you can do. I can prevent them from taking me. Now, I would have gone for the jugular. Personally, I have some notes coming on that. But people fail. That's our curse.
Also, I feel like there are slicier things in that gal. Maybe he picked something that was not quite as slicey, so it wasn't as obvious what he was about to do with it.
Yeah, if he just picked up a blaster and be like, this is one of the suspicious items, but this like really cool crystalline kind of like knobby blade, she wasn't like, I'd like you to not be holding the weapon. So in that sense, it worked.
It's dull, cousin. It'll hurt more. I bet it hurt a lot. Okay.
Oh man, Dedra. It is time for one of the most anticipated meetings in recent television history. This was just incredible.
Not since Cyril and Cassian. Oh wait. Yeah. Oh no. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the cat and mouse moment we deserve, though. Very
so
good.
Reminiscent of that, right down to Dedra's obsession, blinding her to the right way to do this. Of course, we get the exact opposite of "Who are you?" It's like, and I've known you all along. So. Some variance inside of our parallelism. Yeah. What a show. We cut before we get to the Dedra Luthen meeting to Kleya, who is hurriedly recounting and repeating all of the things that Luthen has told her. The fuel from Gorman, the base in Scarif, Kyber from Jedha, Krennic, engineer, Galen Erso, super weapon, boom, 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 boom. And she wants to be the one to go do the burn, and Luthen insists that it be him. Tells her not to argue. Just be waiting for me. Just be there.
By the way, two things. Number one, she's like, I would be faster.
Yeah.
Right. And I think she would have. I think she would have been faster. And I think she would not have answered the door, and she would have slipped out the back, and it would have been different. But
probably
also,
slipping out the back probably doesn't help. I feel like they're posted there.
I feel like There
No?
has to be another way out. I don't know. Probably. Anyway,
Make your way out before you go in. You're
I
right.
just
They probably
really
had a
believe
tunnel.
that Kleya would know how to get the fuck out. She would like, go in the vents, like, you know. My question is, did she go to the safe? You know, he's like, be waiting for you there. Did she go there and then like it was enough time that she came back to look at the ambulance take him away, or did she disobey that order and go back to the showroom and
help?
That's when she saw the ambulance. Before we get there though.
Yeah.
I loved the visual. They lingered here. And then they went back to it, but the visual of like looks like mercury, like oozing into Kleya's switchboard.
Yeah.
The way in which Kleya's switchboard, which has been such a pleasure of a like piece of production design to watch, for all of Andor, the fact that it becomes this like key plot point here. But also I was just thinking about like the metaphor of this like, you know, burning ooze into like. It could go either way, and that usually means that I'm overreaching. But like, is this the like corrosive spread of the empire into things like burning and sizzling and rotting, or is it the you can't hold back the tide spread of the rebellion? Sort of like, exactly. Like the way in which it was like these little, you know, plugs and cogs made me think of like Cyril Karn's cubicle, made me think of like very empiric, like sort of law and order and regiment. And it's just this like, here we come. It's the rebellion. We're going to fuck shit up. I don't know. Either way, beautiful image.
I love it. I loved the visuals here, and I loved the sound, the way that like you noted, the score is just fantastic throughout so many of these scenes. And the way that the soundscape here shifted from the surging score into the doorbell ringing. I was just like, oh, shit. Oh, my God.
And the way that you see Luthen see who it is and smile before it's not even like she doesn't turn around. We don't even see what's on the other side of that door.
Right.
He's put on his smile. Here he goes.
The mask.
And then it's a fucking Dedra. Oh my God.
When she turned around, it was like genuine chills. Just great, really rewarding stuff as a viewer and fan of the show. He waves her in.
He gives her this like
close.
He gives her this like effete hand, and she like grabs it and shakes it, and they've just got these smiles on, and this fake smile that we've seen from Luthen, obviously that mask, but like to see it on Dedra, who we've already talked about. The actress has talked about her down-turning mouth and stuff like that. So to watch her smiling as they play this little game is really fun.
I thought this was riveting. Absolutely riveting. The dance. When are they going to let the mask slip? Who is going to say the thing out loud first? All of the moments and lines that are not only just so charged, but so soaked with double meanings as we go. The false pleasantries of just like, oh, I've always passed by here and it's so peaceful. But then like, what is she really saying? You were here, right? You were here all along. And we think back to like Cassian imploring Luthen to leave and saying, you can't stay here. They're going to find you. And Cassian was right. They did. But also it's a moment to like reflect on the genius of Luthen hiding in plain sight like this. Not only the shop on Coruscant being so close to the ISB, these people who were hunting for him, but one of the great thrills of getting the backstory with Kleya and Luthen and seeing like this journey into using antiquities is the way that they ended up getting access to these halls of power. It's just like all of it came together here and was just so wonderful. And Dedra asks, is everything here real? I loved this part.
It's so funny.
The little chuckle from Luthen as he said, at the moment, only 2 pieces of questionable provenance in the gallery. And he guesses. He shows her the blade. So the genius of like using this as a front to get the weapon that he will stab himself with into his hand. But obviously the fact that he is talking about both of them.
The 2 of them, yeah.
Delightful, thrilling. She's got something to show him.
Okay. I'm obsessed with this moment. So she has her little case with her, right? Her little like 90s case with her. She
brought her school box,
She pulls out the Star Path unit from Ferrix and she slams it down. But what is so brilliant about this moment is the sound design. I was thinking a lot about there's this moment, I know you know it well because you watch it every year, in Fellowship of the Ring, when Gandalf takes the envelope that has the ring in it and he sort of like dumps it out. Or is it no, it's when Bilbo drops the ring. So when Bilbo drops the ring in Bag End and it hits the floor with this loud clunk that is unworldly. Like, this item would not make this sound. And, they talked in, the making of Fellowship that they like magnetized it so that it would just sort of like hit the ground heavier. And then they did this thing on the sound design to reverb it just to make you feel how heavy this thing is. So when she slams it down, like she slams it down with force, but the sound it makes is not a natural sound. It is a reverberation. And the similar-ish thing happens when Krennic puts his finger on the top of her head. It is like a sound design thunk of like, here it is, it's come for you. And the connections that this arc draws between Dedra and Luthen, and this idea that like, thunk, here comes the Star Path unit for you, Luthen, and thunk, here comes Krennic's beloved pointer finger for you, Dedra Miro, is one of my favorite details inside of this arc. I just thought it was brilliant.
I love that. Oh, man. And it makes me think then, because you used the word reverberation, of how we've talked about the banging of the anvil on Ferrix. Yeah. And then that connects to one of your opening points about these contrasts inside of similarities. Like, for the rebellion, even in its nascent budding state, when Marva talks about that sound and what does it mean when you hear it, that's a reckoning, and it's a sound of hope, and it's a sound of fellowship and unity. Your neighbors are going to be there to come and help and stand by your side. And that the reverberating sounds for the Empire means that something is ending.
Yeah.
That something is ceasing, stopping. Like the differences in those declarations of intent, that's incredible. You're the best. You're the best.
You're the best.
I just love thinking about Ferrix too, like having the Star Path, like this thing that began it all.
Yes.
The thing that, okay, Bix, your buyer, I've got this thing. It brought all this convergence. Like, obviously sort of what happened on, Morlana 1, but it ports us back in time in a way that I was really grateful for and loved. And I mean, the presence of Ferrix throughout. Oh, you know what we haven't talked about yet? That they did, that I saw on social, that the hand thing, that it is Ferrix.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Stone and sky, baby.
Stone and sky. Oh my God. Dedra's like, it's time for my villain speech. And I will not be denied.
I've been practicing it.
I've been dreaming about it more times than I can count. I've got it all prepared. I absolutely loved this. Hiding in the shelter of imperial peace, she says to him. Kind of the opposite of like the you're in my net moment with Bix, where she was really like, I have you in my control. I see you. I know you're here. And the Luthen response, and I've known you all along, hardly seems fair. I loved the way that neither of them shrunk from each other even for a second. I mean, Luthen has there's the stillness and the quiet when he sees the Star Path, but then he is ready, and he is ready to tell her what he thinks of her and what he thinks of the Empire. And she is ready, of course, to do the same in turn. And I loved not only that this gives us this kind of contrast to the Cyril Cassian, who are you, but like what I really loved about, and I've known you all along, hardly seems fair, is that like, okay, this is in theory the moment where Dedra wins. She has found him after the 5-year hunt. She is about to take him into custody. It's over. And he is saying to her, you didn't beat me. I beat you every single day. I was ahead of you every step. And I just fucking loved that.
He's ahead of her right in that moment, because here she is. She's caught monologuing. She needed her
Happens
theater.
To the best of us, Dedra.
It really does. But like, she needed her. Like, if she had just sent the tactical team in, she probably could have like stopped. I mean, that incredible Imperial agent, who we'll talk about later on the switchboard, figured out how to use its intel anyway. But
need a spinoff.
Absolutely. But, she didn't notice the sizzling on the switchboard until a while. So he bought time for that mercury to seep into the switchboard with his theater. But her theater that she needed to do this, like, big grand moment. If she just sent the tactical team in, like she would have just snapped him up. I'm not rooting for her, to be clear, but I'm just saying, but like how poetic that it's her need for, having told you and I both wrote in our notes this idea that, she talked to here and she's like, doesn't have to be mean. I don't need the glory.
I don't need the glory. You can have the glory.
She definitely did.
And she waited for his off day. That might have been the single best detail of this entire fucking thing. Is he's like, when you're talking about here, it's like you waited for my day off.
But to go back to what she says about hiding in the shelter of imperial peace. I had in my notes, and I maybe my brain just filled it in, but I had in my notes, the shelter of imperial peace and quiet.
And quiet. Yep.
And I was thinking about that. And so I was like thinking about that line. And so I flipped to the end to when we see her in is it Narkina? I don't know, Narkina-esque,
same
space.
cells, same jumper.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like I'm just like, is it that structure on a different location? I don't know, but let's say it's Narkina for simplicity. It's quiet, it's peaceful in there, and that's
how
where she
is.
Liking it.
Yeah.
How are you enjoying that imperial peace and quiet?
Totally. Oh my God. I really loved that the episode made the inevitability of people watching at home being like, Dedra! Not that they're rooting for her, like you said, but like, why are you speechifying? Just do it. Active text with in the Krennic scene later. Just like that was harrowing to watch. But it was important that somebody say to her, like, why did you go in there alone? The hell is wrong with you? I thought that was great that we actually got that in the episode.
With your little prop that you've been hanging on to for
speaking of props,
5 years. Yeah.
Speaking of props, it is the thrill of my life to note that Dedra Miro has gone to Wig Watch Corner with you. Joanna, the floor is yours.
On the one hand, it's the thrill of our lives. On the other hand, are you not in the depths of despair thinking about the fact that Dedra Miro never got to see the wig that they put on Luthen Rahl in the flashbacks? Like, but yeah,
she doesn't deserve to. It's just for us.
She says that he wants chaos, not freedom, to ruin the galaxy and run back and quote his ridiculous wig. Genuinely welcome to Wig Watch Corner. We've been
wild stuff.
We welcome all comers, even fascistic ones. Yeah. We want you to go to prison, but while you're in prison, you can think about wigs all the time if you want to. So yeah,
that's very generous of you. We're thinking about Nemec because how can freedom is a pure idea, which we will hear later when Partagas is fucking holy shit listening to Nemec's manifesto, which is spread across the galaxy. Luthen is like the thing that, because she says that he disgusts her, and he says the thing that scares her is freedom, right? She tries to turn it around. You want chaos, not freedom. But I love that, again, this dance, he just goes right back to like how confident you are, how confident and terrified. This idea of the Empire being scared, the fragility of that hold on power, the brittleness of it, as we hear from Nemec. And it made me think back to like episode 3 of season 1, this recruitment with Luthen and Cassian. The Empire, they're so fat and satisfied they can't imagine it, that someone like me would ever get inside their house, walk their floors, spit in their food, take their gear. And Luthen responded to Cassian saying that by saying, their arrogance is remarkable, isn't it? Like, this has always been on Luthen's mind, the arrogance of the Empire as not only a thing fueling the Empire's greed and thirst for power, but ultimately the thing that would be their undoing, which is what we watch across these episodes and across Rogue One. And
Dedra's swanning in, but like confident and terrified, I loved, because you mentioned earlier, I think you described Kleya as frantic. That wasn't really my read on her. She seems so focused. She has such clarity of purpose, especially like, she's devastated when Luthen gets taken, but we watch her go through that hospital with such clarity of purpose, and she's just go, 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 go.
I would only say frantic in the I've been waiting for a while for someone to respond to my message. Is anyone coming? Moment. Not until like cool, calm, focused until then, for sure. Yeah.
I was thinking of the Narkina arc line from Cassian, power doesn't panic. And I was just thinking about that throughout these episodes. There's just like all these moments where we watch the Empire and the Imperial forces panicking, or, some members of the Council and Yavin panicking. But like when Kleya's message comes in to Yavin, like, Will and Cassian and Melshi and like Kay is anxious because of the rules, but like they're focused and they're purposeful and they're going forward. And it's the baddies who are panicking inside of all of this.
The look on Partagas' face when they can't get the feedback.
Yeah.
I mean,
but even like Partagas talking, even in the cooler, calmer, collected Partagas talking to Krennic scene.
So good.
You know, they're being smooth, and Krennic is being like, "You're fucked. I can't protect you, Leo. Right? You're fucked." Partagas like, "I think you're fucked."
Yeah.
He's like, "Save your sermon for the Emperor." You know, good luck to us both. You're fucked. You know, and so there's just this like, this information got out, and oh shit, we're panicking.
Here's response to what's happening is just like this. Make sure they know it was Dedra's fault.
Yeah.
Everybody's ass covering. And everybody's like, trying to make it another day.
Best friend here. You know, ever heard of him?
Frankly, incredible stuff. I really loved how petty she was. In that absolute dire circumstance, there's still time to dunk on here. Great stuff. Great stuff. Email from RG.
How do we think Syril's absence impacted Dedra's increased fanatical need to scavenge for Luthen?
Yeah. What do you think about this?
I'm not saying, you know, like, I'm just saying Dedra was not making fondue for Edie. You know what I mean? All she was doing was perseverating over paperwork. And, you know, she puts together all of these clues. This is what we hear her talk to Krennic about. And it's just sort of like, I'm not saying like, she wouldn't have figured this out, but without even the slightest splinter of a home life that she used to have, now she's just like, you know, dead to rights on this.
I think that's really interesting because, like, obviously, even when she got the Gorman assignment, she was like, actually, I just really want to keep working on Axis. And then when Garrett got the Axis desk, and she was like so enraged that he didn't consult her, and she never stopped thinking about it or perseverating over it for a moment. But as soon as Gorman ended, and you know, our last image of her there is the clawing at the neck and the shaking hands, and like without that mission and with the thing that she carried after the mission, and then without Syril, and we're going to talk about this more, you know, as we go here, but without the fulfillment of the false promise of this hero's welcome, all there was the obsession and the scavenging to try to find the thing that would allow her to win. And Luthen tells her it's too late. It's too late. The rebellion isn't here anymore. It's flown away. It's everywhere now. There's a whole galaxy out there waiting to disgust you. This was incredible. Another one of the best lines here. Here's another candidate. This was just fantastic. And like, you know, we're the spark that lights the fire. Like, fires spread, right? They grow. That's what they do. And the idea of the rebellion, and this is so central in Nemec's speech, like that it's already everywhere. People don't even know what they're a part of. And to hear Luthen talking in this way too, like, it makes us simultaneously feel the progress of the rebellion and the point that we are at in the timeline of the canon, but also kind of like the eternal truth of this thing, right? I thought this was just great. And it really made me think as well of again, Marva, the way that she talked about the sound of the people of Ferrix ringing those bells, and like the dawning of the reckoning and the announcement of this intention.
I was thinking of Firefly and Serenity, and this idea of like, you can't stop the signal, Mal. Not you, Mallory Rubin, but you can't stop the signal, Mal. Like, it's too late. It's already out there, right? And yeah, this idea of like disruption and like a fire that catches and spreads, or a mercury ooze that sizzles, like this idea, this false notion that a fascistic government or a fascistic regime brings peace and order,
right?
And the idea of like, don't you want it calm? Don't you want it quiet? Don't you not want to make, you know, throw in with these rabble rousers, these terrorists, these whatever the case may be? We're offering peace and calm to you. All you have to do is submit to the boot on your neck. And you know, it's the false narrative that fascism tries to sell you. And I just and it comes calling for Dedra Miro in
boy does
his
it
arc.
Boy does it. So does that sizzle from the back room. She realizes what's happening. Luthen turns, stabs himself in the gut. Would have gone for the neck, as stated. I'll say it once more. Really feel like this was a miss, but so it goes. I did love the way that Luthen, who again won't go to Yavin, doesn't think it's for him, is as at odds with other leaders in the rebellion as Saw was in prior seasons. You know, Luthen being the guy who said to Saw, like, we'd be stronger together, and then finds himself so on the outside. The pride that he took in telling her that the rebellion was everywhere, that it was out of her reach, was just such a cool final little victory for him to get to enjoy and relish. I really loved that he got that moment before the med kit was placed over the gaping wound in his stomach and he was sent on a gurney to the hospital.
Great floaty gurney.
It was a great floaty gurney.
I do want to echo something that Ben wrote in his recap, and I had it in my notes as well, which is like, I've read enough spy stories to wonder why Luthen doesn't have a cyanide capsule in his tooth that he could just bite down on. But then we wouldn't get Kleya breaking into the hospital. So
maybe
I'll take it.
Maybe he's like a tooth grinder. Maybe that's how he works through his anxiety. Could that be it?
Sure. He needs a mouth guard and he needs a cyanide capsule. Kleya, watching him go with tears in her eyes and her little spy hoodie up. She at least puts the hoodie up, you know.
She's always ready. Yeah. Always ready with a murder cloak or a spy hoodie. Yeah.
This queen among mortals.
Or medical scrubs that she stole. Just fucking legend. Always. Yeah, it's you and Ben are right. You know, I love Luthen, but like, he has literally since the beginning been talking about how his death was inevitable as part of this. So, you know, yeah. Stuff.
Cyanide in the tooth. Look into it.
Panic at the ISB before we get to the hospital. Here it arrives. The meeting's already been canceled because of everything that's happening with Dedra and Luthen. And Partagaz is like, yee, she's had a problem with boundaries. We know it. She knows it. You know it. She did get access. He's very badly wounded. And here it's like, I'm here because Lonnie's dead.
Like, I have news. Wait for my news.
I love the quiet, what?
He also Partagaz. He gasps.
Partagaz is across these episodes confronting the fact that the thing he has poured his entire life to is crumbling in front of him in real time. Incredible performance as usual.
As always.
Oh, I'll miss our Partagasms. Great character.
Anton Lesser, what are you doing next? We will watch it.
That was a cool moment on the watch when Gilroy was like, I just had to give him a moment to have the stage to himself.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. That's when you know you're fucking cooking. Back at the gallery, the ISB CSI setting up shop.
Do you know what CSI is called in England?
No, but I would love to.
It's it's SOCO, Scene of Crime Officer, I think is what it is. But one time I was in London and we had a break-in in the flat, and they're like, "Oh, well, Socko will be here soon." I was like, "Socko? What did you just say?"
It sounds like a sock puppet, like a hacky sack thing.
Socko will be here soon.
It's great. I love it. I love that I know this now. At the hospital, Dedra is observing Luthen, and we get a lot of just quiet, casual savagery and menace from Dedra, including when the doc is like, "Hey, you can't close down the hallway. All of my patients are here." And Dedra says that I'm sure he'll do a better job of moving them than we will.
Oh, just good.
Incredible, way to remind us that the quality of life in the galaxy is not what Dedra Miro is focused on. No. Not at all. No. Not at all. Here it arrives. Loved this scene. This was great.
I love that. Okay, so Tony Gilroy, in several interviews on StarWars.com, they talked about it. The set design of this hospital, which I believe is based on Lloyd's of London, but it's this like U shape, so you can see across, and they just sort of like faked it. It's one floor that they designed, and they just sort of like faked it for all the floors. But the fact that Dedra can see Hirt arrive in the elevator from across the way before he gets there, so we see her sort of like prepare herself for that, is so good. And the fact that like this is so believable that Hirt's like, let's get to the bottom of this and let me rush to blame everything on you. And then it also draws them both away from the room so that Kleya can ultimately like get in. But it's like a really believable draw away from the room. So yeah.
I thought the thing that that horseshoe shape and the ability to see across reminded me of was Narkina. And the way that when,
Mm.
the groups are lining up, like this idea of just how information travels and how a thing that you glimpse, whether it's somebody actively trying to sign and communicate with you or just your like upstart former aide who's now trying to take you down and have you arrested. And when you're like, I'm going to call party guest. He's like, who do you think sent me? Let's go. You're under arrest is coming for you. This idea of insight at a distance and just that moment to prep is really like a cool part of the framing, especially in comparison to what you've noted about like the walk toward the cameras for like these individual focuses. Like when are we the eye and when is somebody else the eye of like what is coming? I just like really is so many fascinating little bits of staging across these episodes.
It also makes what we're about to watch Kleya do like all the more impressive, given that she's doing it in this sort of like panopticon-esque building where it's just clear glass everywhere. It's wild.
Kleya goes to the safe house and it's a wet, crumbling mess. Not in good shape. Hasn't been occupied for a hot second. That floor, at least. The level below looked lovely still. And
that was so wild to me. That couple is just living in a totally normal apartment right underneath an absolute wreck.
I guess nothing's dripping through. Yeah. Good insulation.
On the set design, production design front, I love that they had to like design a beautiful, pristine version of the like ruinous apartment that they've been working with all season. I thought that was really funny.
I loved that. Great stuff. We're going to learn at last how Kleya and Luthen came into each other's lives, because suddenly as Kleya is standing in the present time frame here, we hear blasters firing and we are ported into the past. Joanna, take me to Wig Watch again.
This is incredible. Okay, so like, also, I mean, like, Kleya we've already talked about as like, an absolute icon, but just like she's given so much plot wise, but also performance wise. Mm-hmm. Like this shot in the safe house is just like her standing there in frame in an incredible coat, but just like, and then her face, like she's shaking. She's not panicking, but she is like absorbing this information. We hear the flashback before we see it, right? We're with her and we hear the sound of war. This whole thing is shot differently. Like we're immediately, not all the flashbacks are, but this first flashback is shot with like different lenses, different lighting. So we know that we're in this like other space. We're hearing all of this like very traumatic thing. And then in comes Luthen Raoul. And this is an email we got from our listener, Chase, who says, okay, I love Andor as usual, but I did have to keep saying to myself, de-aged, bewigged Stellan Skarsgård isn't real. He can't hurt you. Is this what people mean when they talk about their sleep paralysis demons? That wig was the stuff of nightmares. Between the digital de-aging and yet another uniquely upsetting Luthen wig, I immediately was the Leo pointy meme saying, this is going to bother Joanna deeply, and I absolutely agree with her. We've run out of perfect indeed. So funny that they put that line in the script after the hair department shrugged and said it verbatim when they threw in the towel on that horrid semi-crew cut. Incredible email from Chase. Thank you so much, Chase. Really funny. I do want to say, with love and respect to the wig department, who've done an incredible job across Andor. I was watching, they did these like little day in the life on set videos that like Genevieve O'Reilly posted one, Diego posted one, etc. And Genevieve O'Reilly as Mon Mothma, like watching them apply the Mon wig, not to mention we'll obviously get to, but the previous Mon wig, like that's an incredible wig. Like there's incredible wig work on this show. This is just a moment that was not their finest hour. I would have gone for a longer, swoopier cut myself and not, I guess they're going for military.
Yeah, military.
Maybe put a helmet on him. Maybe that's
okay. That's a good solve. Put a helmet on is a good solve. But then would the passage of time have not been felt as keenly? One of the things I liked was the way the hair very like slightly changed across these four.
Oh my God, it was so, when we got to the one where it turned into a swoop, I was so relieved.
Great.
I was like,
you just needed the swoop. You just needed the swoop. So we're going to take these memories all together, the flashbacks all together. They are intercut in a feat of editing brilliance with Kleya's expedition to reach Luthen in the hospital. Climb. Yes. Fuck yes. But we're going to take them all here. So this first one we're seeing like through her position in the grate, his legs. We're hearing the snippets. Like you said, it's very clear that this is another planet, another people that are being destroyed, right? Taken. If you see anything move, kill it. horrifying. And we
Kill
see
it. Ugh.
Yeah. We see Luthen. We learn that his name is Lear, Sergeant Lear. And before we talk about the struggle that we witness, we have to talk about the name, Joanna.
Okay, what's up, bad babies? You sent us not only many Wig emails, but also many Shakespeare emails, and I just see you and I really, really like you. So Jamie sent this one in. Little something for Shakespeare Corner. We got the reveal of Luthen's surname being Lear. Obviously, Lear is an anagram for Rel, but also it got me thinking about Kleya as Cordelia.
Mm-hmm.
In the play, Lear has 3 daughters who all claim to love him, but in many ways see him as a means to an end, and only Cordelia loves him purely. I was specifically thinking back to the moment Kleya had with Vel in season 1, where Vel asked what she had done for him lately, and Kleya said, "I don't need lately, I have always." Side note, that's when she's like, plate spinning, blah, blah, blah. Yep. Incredible, iconic Kleya moment, season 1. Okay, back to the email. If we look at Vel and Mon, perhaps as Goneril and Reagan, they look up to Luthen up to a point, but they lost faith. They grew dissatisfied with how he did things. And in the end, only Kleya was loyal to Luthen, not just the rebellion, the way only Cordelia was loyal to Lear in the end.
Love it. The bard is always welcome.
Always.
The professor is always welcome, and the bard is always welcome.
The idea of Mon and Vel as Goneril Reagan really cracks me up.
Very, very good.
It's really, really good. And I got this email independent of, then Chris posed this great question to Tony about like the children of Luthen.
Yes.
And this idea. And he also sort of like scooped in Cassian and Will and like all this other stuff like that, like these rebels that Luthen sort of fostered and raised. I thought that was a really brilliant observation from Christopher Ryan. Is it J. Ryan?
CR. Yeah. CR, another goat. So many goats. Wilmon, CR, 2 of the greats.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it. I can't believe how much I care about Wilmon at the end of this.
Will is your Lonni, and that's great.
I just fucking love Wilmon. When Cassian told Will, like, I have bad news, Will, Luthen's dead, and then just again put his comforting hand on like the back of his head and embrace him, I was like, I am just sobbing watching these two. Ferrix, it's a stone and sky. Oh my God.
Did you see the meme that was like Cassian saying, "I have friends everywhere," and then next to it, it's Will with his ladies, and it says, "I have girlfriends everywhere."
Dude, Will is a swordsman, a lightsaberman, and I respect it. I do, but he's
loyal to
Jaina.
Yeah, loyal to Jaina.
I think that the fact that the radio is under the bed, though, that he goes back home and his girlfriend's like, what is this that I found under the bed? And it's a beeping radio because he's a loyal guy, friends everywhere. We are listening, but definitely like certainly made me think of like hiding porn under the bed or something. And I was like, yeah, this is just one more way. It's not Playboy, it's a radio, but it is one more way to remind us that Will is just always getting his dick wet. So good for him.
Do you think that's what Cyril Karn had in his secret box? Was it a radio?
Yeah, it was a radio. Okay. Yeah, a radio.
That's what I thought.
Oh, Cyril, I miss him.
Bad baby.
Wow. There we go.
It's been a minute.
It's been a minute. It has been. Luthen is sitting here, Joanna, and he is saying to himself, kind of repeating and then crying and then screaming, "Make it stop. Make it stop." Rosh Nalutz in his, we can presume, native tongue. Mm-hmm. And then he hears this sound. He is so horrified by what is unfolding out there, this army that he is a part of. He has clearly already come to a moment and a point where he is unable to participate in this any longer. He is hiding. Fellow soldiers come in. The captain comes in. What are you doing? I had to reload. What do you want me to do about the, right? But then he hears this sound. And he opens the grate and he sees Kleya, the girl who will become Kleya. The first moment of the shush to make sure she stays safe, and then the building toward the grasping of the hand. Holy fucking hell. This was like amazing to just finally get the moment that they chose each other. I really, really, really have loved hearing Tony Gilroy talk about this in interviews. And the way that he described it in his interview with Dalton Ross at EW was, she is his transformation. And that's a pretty unusual story to be able to tell. I loved that. She is his transformation. And he was already on the brink of something, of rejecting something and moving towards something. But what finally led to it, Joanna? A person. And I was thinking of you, and I was thinking of our guy, David Lindelof in Lost. And one of the things that, he loves to talk about, and like you always are whenever you mention this on any of the pods, like it's always such a beautiful thing. What's the most satisfying and rewarding answer to a mystery or question? Another person. And we've wondered for so long, like, how did Luthen become this guy? How did he choose to start doing these things? And how did he get to this place? And he's been doing it for so long. And we know that because of something like the equation I wrote. Like it's clear that it has been his life for a while, but how did it start? And the answer is Kleya.
Thank you so much for invoking the greatest answer to a mystery is a person, but also like in that moment right before he does that, one of his one of his men who comes in to talk to him says, "I can't believe there are any of them left out there, but you don't want to be out here alone." And then he reaches a hand out to her, and she hasn't been alone since, until we find her in this episode, right? But you don't want to be out here alone. Like, it's a violent, scary world, and you want to be together. And he finds her, she finds him, they're together presumably almost every day since missions aside. And what is a Kleya alone in the world? We talked about this a lot on The Last of Us. What's an Ellie alone in the world? What's a Kleya alone in the world? And the answer is a badass is the answer, but also just like unmoored from
right. You need your anchor.
Purpose. There's a ton of theorizing that Kleya is Cassian's sister, and I just want to say, and Ben texted me about this, and he was like, "Where are you in this?" And I was like, vaguely possible, but not probable was sort of where I landed. Yeah. And then given all the interviews that various people have given, it's like, it's a no. It's a no. This isn't Cassian's sister, but a spiritual sister of a kind. There's definitely a parallel to
no question.
Marva discovering Cassian, Luthen discovering Kleya.
Yes.
Saw reaching out for Jyn Erso. Like there are these like moments of discovery for these kids. She does have the long curly hair that is similar to the young actress who played his sister. And I will say, if they didn't want to draw this connection, it was perhaps, I found out on StarWars.com, like sort of trivia for this week, that they shot the market where we first see the first market where we see young Kleya and Luthen peddling their wares was shot in Black Park, which is the same exact place they shot the Canary Village. And I was like, guys, you invited this a little bit to your door, but the answer is no, but yes, in sort of like a spiritual way, I guess.
Yeah. I think that's ultimately more interesting and more satisfying for it to be that kind of that parallel of experience and that parallel of theme, and not just that they were like scooped up by these people and brought into this world, which they were, and what a thing to share, but like that they came from these broken worlds that these forces had destroyed. And so then I like thinking about those two characters growing up having a conversation like the one they had last week for us, last year for them.
Yeah.
When Cassian's like, "I'm done," and Kleya says, so it's a private thing, something I wouldn't understand. And then now one of the things that has been so rewarding about watching Andor is just like everything that comes before is enriched for us now with every further step we take. Mm-hmm. And so you go back to a conversation like that, like, and her saying to Cassian, "You were a witness to the Gorman massacre. One would think there'd be no stopping you." This is her Gorman. Yeah. What happened here? What happened to her family? What happened to her home? And like,
we got a really incredible email that we'll get to later about Vel. And I didn't put this section of it in there, but this idea that like, Cinta gives Vel shit for being like a rich girl, basically cosplaying rebellion to a certain degree. But this idea that Vel is a rebel, unlike so many of these other people, did not lose her entire, like, Chandrila is still thriving. And so did not have to like lose her entire home or lose all of this in order to be inspired into the rebellion. And we'll talk about sort of her inspiration later. But yeah, this idea that like, what did Cassian have to lose? What did Will have to lose? What did like all these people have to lose in order to find themselves here? And it's a very strong uniting cause, and it's not true for everyone, but it's true. It's true for Cinta. It's really interesting. Yeah.
Some of us decided to do something about it, as Cassian will say to Jyn. Let's go into our second memory. We have a new lone wolf and cub in Star Wars, Joe. Take me through it. Take me through it.
I loved this. We've got Luthen and Kleya. Love a space cockney. We get a few of them in this stretch of the show. But I loved this woman with her thick eyeliner and her like smile. It'll, I'll give you this much if you smile. And Kleya's like, no smile, fuck you.
So that was incredible. I loved that.
I love this like origin for their whole cover, that like from the start we see how they started in this way. And we got this really interesting email from Jess about like she sent it before this arc, just sort of thinking about Kleya and Luthen and the antiquities trade. You already mentioned this, the way in which that can like bring them inside of people's homes. But Jess wrote, as a museum professional currently working in an art gallery, I prefer the term gallerina personally, it's a wonderful to watch Kleya represent my field in Andor. I can't stop thinking about how well primed we are to engage with subterfuge and resistance. After all, we are a bunch of fluid liars who are able to both schmooze with wealthy clients and bond with artists at all stages of their careers. Our institutions are, as we're seeing in America today, frequently targets of fascist regimes because we promote empathy, historical contextual awareness, critical thinking, looking, and creativity. Perhaps because of this, the museum field has a long history of active resistance. We are the people who protect the art, even when we can't protect the artists. A notable example is when the art collections of the Louvre were vacated in their entirety and hidden in chateaus outside of Paris in order to keep them from Nazi occupation. And just goes on to talk about sort of like her current state. But I just thought that had never really occurred to me. And I think that's like a really beautiful, this idea. Well, I think we probably did talk about this a little bit in season 1 when we were really focusing in on this idea of like cultural specificity.
Yep.
There's a way, of course, we would look askance at certain museum institutions for stealing antiquities from various cultures. That is certainly the case. I don't think that's what Jess is talking about here. But the way in which, in Luthen's case, this is about like treasuring, even when he shows the dagger and he's like, probably ceremonial, this is his provenance, all this sort of stuff like that. Like, it's about celebrating unique cultures, in contrast to the way in which the Empire looks to flatten and homogenize. Yes. And that's also a really interesting element in the brew. Brew. I did that for you. That was for you.
Thank you, my darling. Thank you.
You're welcome, my dearest.
A little Baltimore slipping through. The brew. I am not a daughter of Ferrex, but I am a daughter of Baltimore, and daughters come up here. This your daughter? Yeah.
What an all-timer transition.
Trying. They haggle. We reached the price.
Hopped on that segue and just like rode it into the next section. I love that.
That's my long walk into the next bullet point. When they leave, having secured their prize, Kleya asks about this. Am I your daughter now? When it's useful, Luthen says. And Kleya, a fucking badass from the word go, replies, I have to think about that.
I know. Amazing.
I just absolutely loved this. This exchange was great. We'll be whoever we have to. It won't always be up to us. I'm Luthen now. You're Kleya. Everything else is up for grabs. This entwinement and like tangling in a way that is both naughty and complicated, but also like the specific brew of of their relationship and their story and their history and their life of like affection. That actual forming of a relationship like that with purpose, need, what suits us when, understanding how that was a part of the way that they talked about their bond with each other from the start. And then you build toward just the way that they are looking at each other at the end when it's all on the line. And it's like, there's kind of no doubt what they are to each other at the end.
But they espouse this idea of like, because like in a second we'll see Luthen just like abandon her in the middle of this like chaos in the marketplace. Like they espouse this idea of like, similar to the Jedi, this idea that attachment is dangerous and stuff like that. And they would certainly counsel Vel and Cinta that way, or Bix and Cassian that way. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what we're here for. But at the end of the day, they can say whatever they want to say about the nature of their relationship. Like, they are a bonded pair.
They feel the way they feel about each other. Yeah. I love seeing that like Luthen would fear that forming for other people, but then of course be experiencing it himself, because how could you be alive otherwise? It was really, really great.
We fail.
That's our curse. curse. That's our curse. I was really interested in what Gilroy said about like just flat out, like, I wanted to explain this so nobody else did. I just thought this was great. This was also in the EW interview. He said, I think our curiosity about that relationship about what that relationship is about is huge. I wanted to make sure that everybody wasn't writing a story about that I didn't want them to write. That's always present. I didn't want anyone to think there was anything sexual or anything romantic or anything weird or anything confusing. I really wanted to define it before anybody else tried to define it. If you don't define it, somebody else will. And I like thinking about this in a couple ways. Like, there's just what people consuming the story might take from it once it's theirs. And if you don't tell them a specific thing, they'll maybe think something else. But also, like, if I don't answer this in my Star Wars story, someone else will in their Star Wars story one day.
Yeah. We got so many emails about this, about like, do we want a spinoff for Vel, for Kleya, for this, for that, for the other thing, for Bix and her kiddo, like, most of all. And I think most of the emails were like, I kind of don't want anyone else to touch. I don't want to see a Vel story where Vel isn't written as well as she's written here, sort of thing. And I kind of feel similarly to a certain degree. So
this is Tony's world.
That's how I feel. And if Tony wants to get a couple years rest and then come back,
we would love that.
A Kleya Spy Master story.
Oh God.
Spy Master of the Rebellion story.
Dude, Kleya and Vel, we ship it, obviously.
Clearly.
Who then sometimes visit B and Bix.
Yes.
And
it was so clear to me that Vel
was in touch.
Yeah. She's like, that's what I hear. I'm like, you mean that's what you hear when you go to Mina Rao and you go see her? Yeah.
Great stuff. Joe, take me into more of your thoughts about this third memory when they witness while trying to move the Deveronian victory necklace bearing the mark. And then the Empire brings down the citizens for public execution, including a child.
Yep.
Kleya does not move, stares the truth of the Empire in the face, and Luthen bounces.
So interesting to me because I actually don't know what the right answer is. And I guess in a rebellion, you need both. But like, here is Kleya activated by empathy and she refuses to look away, even as like, not just Luthen leaves, but there's that like alien creature behind her who's like sitting cross-legged with the hat, and he sort of like turns his hat down so he's not looking at it anymore. And Kleya doesn't flinch and she looks.
Yes.
And there's something heroic about that. And there's something galvanizing about that. And like, so that's compassion. And then before we get to Naboo, I will say, side point, these public executions, these like performative cruelties that it's like pageantry of evil that the Empire keeps insisting on, and it gets back to Clem being strung up or Will's dad. It's just sort of like these public performances of oppression and evil is in many cases, and what happens in Gorman is in many cases what gets them at the end. And so Kleya is activated here by what she sees, and she goes to talk to Luthen about it. And he talks about like, we'll start, we fight to win. That means we lose and lose and lose until we're ready. All you know now is how much you hate. Think that, you hide that, you keep it alive until you know what to do with it. And when I tell you to move, you move. So like, he leaves her there. He's like, you're on your own, right? You're all alone here watching this. And like, again, that's that idea of like, you're alone, we're together, etc. But he tells her this. On the one hand, we're like, Luthen's wrong to walk away in this moment. She's right to stare down what is happening, to not flinch away. But then later, when they blow up when they're sitting in this cafe in Naboo, and Luthen's
ice cream looked great.
Oh, looked delicious. She didn't touch it. She went from I'm hungry to I'm not eating this ice cream, because they're about to do I was going to say a rebellion. Like, he tells her to not look.
Right.
Because looking means she knows it's going to happen. And so they don't look.
Yeah.
So that they can, have plausible deniability of like what just happened.
Can escape. Yeah.
But it's also this idea of like, burning your decency, right? It's like this idea of like the walk away, the look away, the lack of immediate empathy is for the cause of long-term empathy and healing and for a world that we don't get to participate in. But like, we look away now so that people don't casually look away forever. And like watching her, little Kleya, in that cafe, first he tells her to look around.
Yes.
Look around. See what's at risk here. And she sees this like little boy with like maybe his grandparents or something like that. And it's just sort of like, here's another kid who gets to live this like very, peaceful, childlike.
Am I going to take that away? Yeah.
Am I going to take it away? But also that's just not available to her.
Yeah.
That's just like not ever who she's going to be. But I just think this is a really interesting juxtaposition of like, and I think they are both right. And I think it goes back to what you need in a rebellion, and you need the Luthens and Kleyas who have ice in their veins. And then you also need the Cassian Andors who are like, I'm not leaving you in this safe house. Yeah. You're coming with me.
Fire in his heart.
Yeah.
I love that. I love the way that all of these flashbacks built into each other. And like how it's just, it's ultimately like quite an economical way of showing us their history, 4 moments in time, a couple minutes in each scene, but to understand the evolution, not only of like their relationship with each other, but of that kind of, of that like that creed, when Luthen is, I mean, not only are we getting the birth of Move there, but like when Luthen is saying, all you know now is how much you hate another contender for the line of the,
and like hell. thinking of Kleya this whole time, and like her performance as someone who is just like masking seething anger under this calmer facade, is really instructive.
Yeah. Yes. I love that. And like, this is the equation, right? This is what he's talking about. What they forge with each other here, this like pact and this way of life, and the differences in their perspectives, to your point, and also the things that they'll agree to abide by together, their contract, their code, their vow. Like, I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago, and here it is. And what a cool thing for us to get to see. I loved on the cafe and the Naboo memory. First of all, very cool to be back in Naboo. It's always great. You need to pay attention. Life shows us what we stand to lose. Unbelievable. And very related to what we were discussing a few minutes ago, because this is a guy who could say all he wants to the person across from him, to himself, to all of the other people he's going to recruit and run, not to get attached. But he's looking at the thing that he could lose too. He doesn't want, I like the way that he said, the only thing I'm afraid of is what I'm doing to you. He doesn't want to lead her down this path. He doesn't want to corrupt her in this way. He knows what this is going to do. Share my dreams with ghosts. That's not what he wants for her, because he already cares. Yeah. And we can feel that so much in the way that he is looking at her there. And I thought like the putting the sliding of the detonator, and it's like a test and a choice, and a declaration that she should get to choose, and also a burden that he will carry for a little while longer.
Doesn't. Yeah.
When he presses it instead. There was just so much packed in to that little exchange. I really, really loved. He's like, loved.
Here we go. We made our choices. Here we go.
Really loved. Gilroy said to Megan O'Keefe at Decider of this stretch and what we learn about their relationship through these memories, the young girl is actually the dominant one. She's actually in control. Luthen's not in control. Otherwise, it runs some risks that you can imagine of manipulation. You really had to find and design those scenes really carefully, and then find a girl who could really believably bring the steel that older Kleya has. Bring the steel. I love that.
Great casting.
That. Yeah, really good.
Really,
really good. And we go then, now in our pod, but again, these are intercut throughout, to the present day. Joanna, take me through Kleya's infiltration of the hospital.
Okay. So before we get to the hospital, we get the like determined stride out from the safe house. Again, Cassian will do this walk later, but we get the stride to camera. She's sort of like ahead. She's got a scarf around her head, like off to do what she needs to do. By the way, before she does that, when she like pulls out the bag that has the lock pick and the detonator and stuff like that. And then later when we see her break the radio out of the wall, I just want to shout out, Kleya's wearing like leather pants and boots and just like
dynamite.
Is the coolest person ever. Looks amazing. looks incredible while she's going through the worst emotional turmoil of her life. Okay? The fit is great. Okay.
Oh man.
So here we go. She goes into the hospital. Someone, I think it was on Blue Sky, responded to me. I posted something about like, I'm ready for CSI Coruscant. And they were talking about how we got like a police procedural and like a hospital procedural inside of the same episode. And I was like, oh yeah, these trappings of classic television. Here we are.
Yeah.
Welcome to the pit in Coruscant. Here we go. But like, you know, we already talked about the layout and what that means for her infiltration. She's in these scrubs. She's taking this long climb up and up and up all the floors that she can go to, you know, to get to him.
I love the person she stole.
Oh,
is like,
Two things. Number one, there's a closed captioning later when she leaves her of it just says Granny scatting.
It's iconic.
Also, thanks StarWars.com, reminded me that we saw these old ladies on Neamos, aka Space Miami. So we've seen these babes before hanging out in Space Miami. Here's
you
this
think
lady.
She likes to crush some pizzas? Wash it down with some Revnog?
She loves
Granny likes to party?
The blue green ones. Also, one other detail is the galactic muzak that plays in the elevator as they go up.
Great touch.
Also,
what?
What? Also, we got an email about this, but I had already, trust me, as a child of the 80s, I had already written in my notes, Nurse Jelly. She's got jellies on her feet. And I think they're supposed to like invoke Crocs, but to me, a child of the 80s,
jellies, same.
They look like jelly sandals to me.
For sure. For sure.
And I just love that like we watch her go up, like innovate, kill people when she needs to, when she has the blaster behind the clipboard and just sort of coolly shoots that guy and then just like calmly sidesteps him as he tumbles, his dead body tumbles down the stairs next to her.
Yeah.
Really, really incredible stuff. And like, as you point out in our notes, later when they're like, it was definitely a 3-person team. Definitely
so good.
Had to have been at least 3 people. And it's just fucking
Kleya. Killing it.
Kleya.
I love like thinking back now to Kleya being the one in the field to remove the bug from Davo's installation in that great scene in episode 6 with Lonni when he was like
hero of the rebellion.
Lonni, there he is again. Has anything important never happened that Lonni didn't touch? I don't know.
I don't think so.
And when Lonni was like, you know, what were you going to do if I wasn't here? And Kleya said, anything I had to. Like, not only did a moment like that prepare us for seeing Kleya in the field acting alone and getting it done here, but now when we go back, that's even richer because of what we have seen after. I just like the way that Andor just is like a pinging and building the whole way. It's great. When she entered Luthen's room.
Yeah. She gets to the, well, here's what I love about this. This is like a devastating moment. She like, you know, pulls the blinds essentially on the windows. And you think she's going to have a moment where she like talks to him or says goodbye or cries over him. And she will in a second, but immediately she uncouples the breathing device from him. And by the way, this is really cool production design on that respirator, but she just goes right for it. And she's like, that's what I was here to do. And she has other things she has to do. She has to get that mission, that message, pass that baton on. She has other things to do. But like, in theory, if she then takes a beat to cry over him, which she does, you know, that's just her getting caught. She's already like killed him, which was her mission. But I just love that she doesn't hesitate. But it doesn't mean she doesn't care. And we get that.
She'll grieve when there's tears. Time. Yeah. I love to just the little kiss on the forehead. Just quick, tiny.
And his little like grimace before his face sort of smooths out into just like peaceful repose.
Joanna, he burned his life to make a sunrise that he knew he'd never see. I loved the way the episode closed just on Luthen.
Slow fade. Yeah.
This thing that Kleya had to do, you know, we'll hear Vel and Kleya talk about it later and how hard it must have been. It reminded me a lot of in Last of Us. Like if somebody you love gets infected and you have to shoot them and how horrible that would be and how painful that would be, but also like, you know, you're sparing them from a worse fate than that. And like that was what Kleya had to do here, but by infiltrating I think ISB.
Also
hallway in a
later,
hospital.
later when Cassian is like, "Are you sure Luthen's dead?" and she like flinches because it's like she doesn't say it, but in that moment it's like, yeah, and I had to be the one to do
I had
it.
to do it.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's time for episode 11.
Speaking of dead people, episode 11 is like, these are wild closes and opens for these episodes, right? We get a cliffhanger at the end of episode 11.
Yeah.
Episode 10, slow fade out on the dead body of Luthen. And episode 11 opens with a shot of a dead stormtrooper on the ground, and we just stay there with him for a moment. When has the camera, outside of like, I don't know, our introduction to Finn in Force Awakens, when has the camera ever lingered on like, because they're just cannon fodder, right? And there's really interesting, when we get to the Krennic Dedra scene, you have some interesting observation about the way in which Krennic is framed there, but I was thinking about later when the tactical team is showing up to the safe house, the Imperial tactical team is showing up to the safe house. We get all these shots of like fingers flexing, cheeks, toes tapping in nerve sort of thing. And it was like almost this like very humanizing of the Imperial forces that we're about to see Kay just sort of rip through. But like, you know, they're evil people, but they are people. And we're used to just sort of stormtroopers being these, they're not stormtroopers, but we're used to stormtroopers being these like, you know, shells. Like we don't think about the people inside them again until we meet Finn, but like this idea of like, these are people making this decision and they've got nerves and they've got this, that, and the other thing. And here's a dead stormtrooper on the ground and he's a bad guy. We don't like fascists and we don't like stormtroopers, but you know, there's a cost of fascism and it hurts everyone on both sides. So I just thought that was a really interesting moment.
That's a great observation. It makes me think of the kids, the green boys who were tossed out there in Gorman. Last week / last year.
Yeah. Last year. Last year in Gorman.
Chilling to hear here Joy Dolly, who are beginning this investigation at the hospital, just kind of run through the list of like, you know, slap charges, 2 AISB drivers dead, 1 missing, guards and hospital staff too. It's like they don't really know what the death toll is. So that was sort of disturbing.
Kleya killed a bunch of people.
Kleya bombed a hospital.
Kleya bombed a hospital.
Thing that we will just say, and then we'll move on to the next point. This is where here to just
Granny's okay.
Yeah. Granny was clear of the blast.
She wasn't near the ambulance bay. Okay, good.
Granny's thriving, just safe
away.
Safe in a brightly lit room, just saying over and over and over again.
Okay.
This is where here it's like I need them to know that this was Dedra's fault multiple times, which was very funny to me. I really enjoyed that. He is like, I've spent a lot of time kind of mocking here, and I thought it was interesting, especially given that he's about to say, like, I'll lead this operation personally, to see him challenge the medical director, Rekla, when he comes in, and he's just like, doesn't flinch at all, right? And he has that hubris and that arrogance of knowing that he's a part of the Imperial machine. Oh, well, if you're going to ask me a single question, that means you're here to stop me, and you're like a threat to me, and I will threaten to take your life away from you, and I will do it without compunction.
I also thought it was really interesting to have Director Rekla, who comes in and he's like, how dare you do this to my hospital? How dare you close the door so we can help people? Yeah. And then you're going to arrest me?
Right.
Immediate back down.
Right. My freedom's at risk.
Oh.
What do you need? What do you need?
Tay Colma's like, my bottom line has been impacted by the rebellion.
Tay, you got a new bottom line coming in. You're going to see it when Cinta turns the car over. It's down at the bottom of the ravine.
Rest in literal pieces, Tay Colma. All right.
I think we're going to be very present in each other's lives until one or both of us is dead. And I like the idea of, like, you know, in our 70s, whatever the technology is, I don't know if it'll be texting. It's just out of nowhere on like a Thursday. One of us texting the other.
I'll mind meld you.
Yeah, exactly. Just fire it into my brain.
Yeah.
Remember when Cinta turned the car over?
I'm like dramatically disappointed in Chris and Andy for not asking Tony Gilroy about that.
I know. I mean,
that's just kidding. It was an incredible interview and I loved every second.
But we don't ask a lot of Chris other than the, 900 times a year where we text him and they're like, can you ask this person this question about this thing? And this was one of those 900 times and he didn't do it. God damn it.
He sure didn't.
Here it has questions and it's like, who are the 3 people? The 3 people who did this. When we talk
Kleya,
about what
Kleya.
spinoffs we want, I want this security guy. This
Oh, yeah.
guy killed me. Killed me. It's like I need to see out there by the bay. It's not. Do you have a second choice? That's Robert. Second
He's like,
choice.
I wouldn't sit there because I think his like coffee stuff was there. Like, it's really good. And his cousin has an application in at the ISB. Yeah.
Oh my God. That was so funny and so good. And we're cutting back and forth between scenes, but they're seeing repeatedly Kleya head down, avoiding the camera, and here admiration, I think, in his eyes when he pieces it together, like, whoa, holy shit, it was just her. Dedra is not there
Krennic.
for this reveal because she is in an interrogation room, much like the one that she once met young Cyril Karn in. And it was chilling to see her in this place, chilling to see how quickly she was discarded by the hideous fascist force that she had devoted her life to. Chilling to see Krennic slowly walk into the control bay and turn off
the recording.
The recording. You're like,
Yeah.
I mean,
You turn off his body
not
cam.
good.
Not great.
Not good.
Not great.
And stride in, and we're looking. The camera is positioned on Dedra's face as Krennic comes in behind her, but it seemed like she saw in the reflection.
Yeah,
who
100%.
it was,
And she squared her shoulders and got herself ready.
Man.
Yeah.
So this was where in this opening stretch before he leans down and whispers into her ear, like, say the word. And I'm like, Orson Krennic, you're a great villain and I love you, but Death Star's 2 words. Before.
Did Chris text you about that? Chris texted me about that. He's like, is Death Star 1 word? I was like, no.
I was waiting for was Stardust, was the official copybook of Scarif that Stardust was 1 word? I was waiting for that maybe, but no, she said Death Star, definitely 2 words. Anyway.
You know who doesn't know that? Tony Gilroy. Did you read the story that he told about his son?
Yes. Yeah.
Telling him that he needed to do the origin for Rebellions Are Built on Hope line.
Incredible.
Basically, if people didn't read this, Tony Gilroy's like, yeah, my son was like, hey, how are you going to explain the origin of Rebellions Are Built on Hope? And Cassian says to Jin and blah, blah. And Tony's like, isn't that a thing people have said in Star Wars before? He's like, nope, you're dumb. Better fix it. Tony Gilroy's son, we salute you for all your work representing the Star Wars community. Anyway, I'm sure.
Is that the son who was in the Maya Pay Brigade?
That's his son-in-law, I think. Oh no, you're right. That's his son. Maybe. I don't know.
What a contribution to the canon.
Wow. I bet he was like, later he texted his dad. He's like, Death Star's 2 words, Dad.
Yeah. I hope so. I hope so. Chicago style.
Orson
AP
Krennic
style, everyone agrees. Death Star is 2 words.
2 words.
When Krennic first walked in, though, before he bent down to whisper menacingly in Dedra's ear, and before he poked to the top of her head, and before he grabbed her entire face and shoved her down into a chair, all fucking disturbing stuff in this sequence. This was where I really was struck by the framing because we see just from the lip down, we don't see his face.
It's amazing.
So we're not seeing any of his, such that it is with Orson Krennic, any of his humanity.
Yeah.
We are seeing his cape and the sign of his rank, and we are seeing the mouth that is spouting this horror. It's all politics and power and the trappings of imperial might. And then we have the opposite with Dedra, right? She is being stripped of this power. I mean, when she has the interaction with here later, she won't have the sign of her rank at all. She doesn't have her code cylinders.
Her hair is must.
Her hair is must. The greatest sin of all.
Her hair is out of place.
Oh my God. Is that why I'm here? For the murder of an ISB
Clark? Oh, he says Clark.
As my reputation slid so precipitously.
I love
Remarkable.
Ben Mendelsohn's
Me too.
Krennic voice because he's doing this Imperial toffee knows British accent, but he's an Aussie and it just comes through as well. So it's just this ISB Clark. It was just really, really good.
Oh my God. Great stuff. He's the best. It's been really fun to have Krennic in the show. Really, 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 really fun. I like to thinking back to just the Krennic Dedra origin and the way that, he invoked Ferrex and the failure of Ferrex and even in recruiting her and saying I want your assessment. I know that you've got one and kind of building her up. He was like, I'm going to remind you that I know how you failed. And that dynamic and that power dynamic between them was like really top of mind for me watching this interaction here. And he's basically like running through the list of people who know about the Death Star, party guys. People I don't know.
Legrette's brother who served on Scarif.
That actually sounds like a potential.
Dedra's like, who can I implicate? Legrette, have you heard of him?
Yeah, they're besties.
Think about it.
Legrette still standing at the end.
Legrette gets a great moment.
Boy, does he. Young had her coat cert. How? And she is outraged. She's like, if he had it, he stole it. I don't know that makes her look much better, that her clearance was stolen by a fellow agent.
Yeah.
And this entire sequence is incredible. Like, all of the information that she had access to, and she's kind of like, at first, no, I had clearance for Gorman. Okay, how about all this other stuff? Galen, orbital progress assessments, Edu, the Jedha working groups. Some packets got mailed to my office by mistake. I should have returned them. But I should have. And we're building and we're building and we're building toward her saying, you left me no fucking choice. I had to scavenge.
I love this because, again, her panic face, right? Yes, I'm a scavenger, but I've had to be. First of all, if you say scavenger, I'm going to think about Ray always. Love you, Ray. But like this idea, Dedra as, she was always this outsider in the ISB room. Yes. She was always this outsider. We talked a lot in season 1, a little bit this season about like Dedra and Blevin as like the one black man and the one woman in this room, and the way that they were pitted against each other and stuff like that. And her being like the only woman inside of this layer of imperial control is in itself worth remarking upon. But
for sure,
when we learn that she was raised in this imperial kinderblock, so like in this like collection of like, smarmy, upper crust Brits, she came from nothing, right? Like I love you, upper crust Brits, but but like she doesn't have family connection. She didn't go to like, she's like, I wasn't in Oxbridge, like, and I didn't go to Eton. I didn't like, I don't have
right
the
to the
connections.
academy.
I don't have any of this. I had to bootstrap my way up. And as a woman inside of this room of all men and all this other stuff. And also you guys are fucking incompetent because you tortured a guy to death instead of following through on the intel he was giving you about the Fondor.
That was so good.
So that was like really, really good. And so what I love about all of this is like, this has been established from day one about Dedra.
Yes.
That she does scavenge, that she loves patterns, that she is better than anyone else in the room at making these connections. And so of course she made all these connections because she's too smart to not. But yeah, this idea of like, I had to scavenge.
Yeah.
Again, I don't like fascists, but I do think it's interesting to think about Dedra as someone who has their back against the wall
for sure
in a number of different ways.
Yeah, I agree. And on the Blevin front and just in general, that like pattern spotting and connection drawing and the aptitude. We even hear Krennic here. He's like, how can somebody so competent have like done these things? Her competence is always centered, even in the moment of her failure. Mm-hmm. And I love that specifically that thing you're identifying, the ability to spot the thing that other people were missing, which was the thrust behind her rise, her ascent.
As her downfall.
Was her undoing. Like, talk about a human relatable thing with somebody who in many other ways, hopefully we can't relate to. Like, boy, really good. I thought that Krennic saying, if you're not a rebel spy, you missed your calling was just absolutely delicious. I loved that. It's not only kind of fun to think about the alternate history where Dedra made different choices and did different things and had wound up in the beginning in a different place, but also like, this is just not in any way what Dedra believes she had been promised, right? And what she was promised. We heard it. We saw it. It's not just like that we saw her say to Cyril, we'll go home as heroes.
Right.
We heard Partagas say to her, everyone who matters knows what you did. Everyone, right? Let the image of professional ascendance settle your nerves. And then when she turns to Partagas in a moment of need, here it's like, who do you think sent me? There's no one she can turn to and no one she can rely on at the end.
I also just like really love this blame chain of
blame chain's great.
I just think that like watching him be like, just frame it all on Dedra here.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe that he believes all the things that he's accusing her of, but he needs to try to like keep his hands clean as much, and then also put it on Partagaz as well. Like whoever he can scoop the blame onto, he will. And then we'll talk about Krennic obviously more when we get to our Rogue One rewatch. But like it's really interesting to see him as sort of top of the chain here, and then consider where he is in the larger picture.
Yes, I'm excited. Yeah, it's like he's got arguments with Tarkin to have. I also. Maybe I'll hit some of this in the Rogue One pod. Maybe not. We'll see. But Krennic's always fucking getting into it with people. Like he and Thrawn. That's one of the most enjoyable parts of subplots of the Thrawn treason book in the Zahn trilogy. Is just like it's like none of these people can get along, and that's something we've been talking about since the beginning of our Andor coverage as well. Like. The infighting is a parallel across the sides, but it leads them to different places, and that's Krennic is a great character for continuing to explore that.
I also love for Dedra that she still thinks Luthen is alive, as Cassian will in his part of this plot, and then she has to like watch them talk about it through that glass that Luthen's dead, and nobody tells her because she's not in the circle anymore, talking about stepping in and outside of circles all season. Like she's out, she's on the outs.
Dude.
And this has been her 5-year mission. And the fact that he's dead is not something worth telling her.
What a fucking insult.
Yeah.
We'll do our best to carry on without you. That's what Krennic says as he forces her down into the chair.
Wrenches her into the chairs.
Hideous, horrifying, because she's like, the assistant, the gallery, she wasn't there, find her. We don't need you at all. You're not a part of this anymore.
Here it does.
Here it does.
He'll come knocking. Yeah.
Great stuff. Kleya signals for help. She goes back to the safe house. She's chipping away at the wall. It's like she's in Shawshank. This is just like incredible.
Where's her poster to cover it?
Dude,
that's so funny.
When Melshi later, when they were like, is there another way out? And she's like, I mean, actually, yes, but we don't have time for it. I love thinking about what it is. Like, where is the secret tunnel that they have dug?
Crawl through miles of piss and shit.
Yeah, exactly. They've got one.
The fact that we like see her shadow on the ceiling before we see her, again, there's just like a lot of artistry in this episode. It's really good. And again, her pants and boots are quite hot. It's important to talk about.
It does bear repeating. I think you're correct to draw attention to it again. It is very meaningful. I really liked how her like series long role as comms overlord, radio chief, was so consequential at the end, not only in what she knew to do and how, but in the training and the shared language between these people. Like later when there's no time to decode it actually, and it's like, oh, Cassian, you already know what the message is.
Yeah.
Great little touch. Loved that.
I also love there's like a lot of sound and visual bleeding inside of this episode or this arc. We hear the beeping of the signal of the radio that she's constructed. Yeah. Over when here it says alone, there's no team, it's only her. We can hear the beeping of her signal. And it's true, like Kleya alone, but she's reaching out. And then we get the red light blinking into Yavin, and so it's just sort of like, again, that messenger idea that you brought up last week. I always like, where's the signal reaching? Who's waiting to receive it? It's Drina.
It's Drina. We got a great email about this.
Yeah. Alex wrote, what a beautiful thing that a survivor of the Gorman massacre, Drina, having sent out her desperate plea for the galaxy, is there to just barely fingertip grab the Kleya Hail Mary. And then it goes to Wilman of the right to repair lineage from Ferrix, who brings it to our favorite intergalactic Forrest Gump, Cassian Andor. It would be you, wouldn't it? I love that. That Drina, just has like the barest little, grasp on this baton as we pass it. The thing I was thinking also about relay races. I just want to use this phrase, which I think is a sporting phrase, which is breast the tape, right? Like that's what happens when you finish a race. You breast the tape. Am I right? And so the idea in a relay race is if you're one of the people who passes along, you don't get to breast the tape. And so like who breasts the tape in this story? It's fucking like Luke and Han, not you, Chewbacca, at the medal ceremony, but who are all the other people who were in that race before we got there?
Dedra would insist on breasting the tape, right?
She really
insist.
would.
Yeah.
Also, before we get to Drina, so when we first see Will, before we get to Drina, when we first see Will, he's like limping through the forest of Yavin, and we will see him later when Cassian arrives back. Like we will see that limp in even more pronounced way, like as everyone's rushing and everyone's like rushing past him, and he just simply can't move faster than everyone else to get to Cassian. And I was thinking about like when Cassian gets a message about Kleya, and he's like, Will's like, I'm coming. He's like, no, you're not. You know I'm right.
Yeah.
To me, and he's like, I'll take Melshi instead. Like to me, that's like, you're injured. You're too slow. You can't do this. You know I'm right. Go down and get us on the test roster, like et cetera, et cetera. Something you can do, but it's not this. And you know I'm right. And I like all of this. Because Will doesn't have to die. He's still alive. He's still like got a sexy Drina girlfriend, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But it makes sense then that Will is not with Cassian when he goes to get Jin. It's Melshi, that he's not involved in Scarif because he's injured. So I really like that, because the question is like, well, if there's a Will or if there's a Bix or if there's a Vel or if there's this, like, where are they in Rogue One? And like the only question mark I have at this point, I think, is Vel, who I think might have been more actively involved, but
interesting.
I'm not mad about it. And if Tony Gilroy wants to give us that Kleya Vel spinoff that explains where they were during Rogue One, I'll watch it happily.
Who says no?
I'll watch it happily.
Who says no? The wrapping up in a coat.
Yeah, some warm tea.
A rainstorm.
They're just having some tea.
Who doesn't love a cuppa?
A cuppa.
A cup of tea. Yeah, I'm thrilled that Will lived. Thrilled. Yeah. Just absolutely thrilled. And yeah, I like too that not only is Cass like, don't do a thing that isn't wise, but like look at all these other ways you can help. Mm-hmm.
There's stuff you can do. Yeah. But it's not great. This. Yeah. On that front, I mean, not everyone can do everything. When it comes to who's going to carry Kleya out of the building, it's Melshi, not our short king, Cassian Andor. So I'm just saying.
Melshi fueled by Revnog. Even when they're like really breaking down what's happening with the radio, he's like, top me off?
Yeah.
One more?
A little mission fuel.
Man. Dude, so Will immediately when he says to Drina, like, I'll explain, I'll be back. I gotta go. He goes to Cass, of course. I love the way he just says Cass when he comes in. But before he arrives,
oh God,
we basically get an Avengers shawarma scene. You know,
amazing.
Like just a little slice of life watching game night with Cass and Melshi and the legend, the god, the icon, the king, K2SO, who is as good as we all knew he would be now that he has rejoined the story in full.
Here's a fun fact from Tony Gilroy himself.
Yeah, this is fascinating.
That Melshi and Cassian and Kay all live there. He's like, Cassian home's like a frat house. They all live there.
Seems great.
I mean, at least the plants are still thriving. It's not like a complete
dude.
Mess.
The Marva plants. The Marva plants.
But the fact that like Bix left and Cassian's like, okay, my bros will move in, I guess. And when Kay says they've played over 800 games. Now, I don't know if you're counting, but it's just been a year, aka last week. So there's 365 days, I believe, in a calendar BBY year. And they've played 800 games of Rianza. So great stuff.
That's they're, you know what? Work-life balance. That's what I'm going with.
No, it reminded me of when I was watching those French Resistance documentaries. They would tell, they'd all be sort of like, bunked up in these like farmhouses in the country, and they would talk about these like nights they would have of like drinking and revelry to a certain degree. And they would like often be sort of in a farmhouse where there would be like a husband and wife who are hiding them. And like the wives would be like, yeah, every single soldier was hitting on, like every single like rebel member was hitting on me. And I was just like, oh mon Dieu, I'm just, a country lady. But I was just like, yeah, and like what I love about, we see Cassian smile, like genuinely smile in this scene,
laugh
in a way that like I don't think we've seen all season. And this is what we find out that there are other reasons perhaps why Bix left, but like this is what she was saying. She's like, you have to be here, you have to be in it, right? You have to be connected to this community. You have to be in Yavin. And this is where he is. He is like, however he feels about Bix, and we'll talk about that when he talks to Vel about it, is just like, he has done what she said, which is like, okay, he and some of the council members may still be at odds, but like, you know, he's found his people, his Melshi, his K X unit. So
he can definitely say with conviction to Kleya, like, I made the choice and I made the right one.
Yeah.
You helped me make it. Also, all this other stuff with Bix happened that we don't have time to get into right now, Kleya. But like, you were a part of convincing me to do this, and I did it, and it was right. Seeing Cass laugh was really great. What a little gift, just to have a moment of joy and like time with your bros.
Bro down over some red
before the end. I really
it's
loved
great.
that.
It's a great scene. Really good.
It was really good. And then, of course, as they're trying to figure out the radio, it's like, oh, well, could it have been just like a flare up? And Will's like, I keep it charged. We don't doubt Will for a second. We heard Pluty tout his prowess as an engineer. God damn it!
The cutie Pluty.
Great. Something made me think of that the other night, just randomly. I was laughing. The pulse code comes through again, and we are off. I loved when Cassian was like, and if it's a trap, it makes no fucking difference. Like, I'm not going to stay put when they need me.
Do you know what broke my heart that the subredditors pointed out?
What?
He tells Melshi to hang on.
Yeah.
And they were like, Nemec. Very upsetting.
Incredibly upsetting. Oh my God. Jesus, that's sad.
Melshi hangs on because he's going to live for at least, I don't know, 4 more days.
Just a few more. He's got a few more in him. He's got a few more in him. Cass and K2 and Melshi disobey 17. Make it 18 orders on the way to taking off. And this goes over about as well as you would expect. Back down on the base, Draven is enraged.
Chris texted me. He's like, is this guy's one job to prevent ships from taking off?
He's got a lot of very important alliance intelligence work to do. God damn it, Christopher.
Great jacket.
It is.
And also, don't let those ships take off.
Also that. I mean, you know, he was last week/year, like, this is not a base for privateers. Yeah. You know? He's on the record. It's established. Those who enjoy the securities of Yavin must proclaim their loyalties. I liked this little moment between Draven and Will. Luthen Rail whistles and you two come running. He says they're jeopardizing the vulnerable thing. Obviously, they are seeking order and predictability and stability, but I thought there was also just naked jealousy here. Right? You know, like, he's your real dad, and you guys are it's what we've been talking about in Last of Us, right? It's the us inside of the larger us. It's not just always us and them, it's the us's inside of the us. And like, the Rael Riders are an us. And that is true. And they always fucking will be, and no one can take that away from them. And I thought the way that we got to really celebrate that in this episode, or these episodes, was awesome. And I loved, we're going to see a lot of like staunch defenses of Luthen from Kleya and Cassian, but just Will in this like one-on-one conversation where it would be easy to shrink, just saying you can run him down all you want, but the truth is none of this would be here without Luthen. None of this.
Hearing Will, the Rail Riders, as you called them, love that. Hearing them speak up for Luthen and sing his praises takes us back to that that part of Luthen's speech that he talked about, like, not only like burn my decency for sunrise I'll never see, but also like
gratitude,
no applause, no gratitude, no, like, none of that. But it's like, you do get it.
Yeah. From the people who knew you and the people who mattered.
You get it. You get the accolades you thought you'd never get. So here you are.
I love knowing that like Star Wars fans for all this time didn't know, but the people who knew Luthen, the people who really knew him and will be able to say I knew the good and the bad. That's how well I knew him. I knew it all. I saw it all. Still choose to speak for him. Even Vel was like, I'll toast him once.
Mon too. Yeah. You know, Mon's like, you know, he might have killed Tacoma, but he did some useful shit. Not gonna lie to you.
He didn't have to pick a convertible, but he did.
Oh my god.
Orson and Lio. fucking loved this scene.
Yeah.
This was so good. How to find Kleya. Here.
Sorry, really quickly. We get this shot again. I don't know. I think it's worth noting. You don't need this shot of here walking up to the building. We get the shot of him walking up to the building and being sort of reflected down in the water as he walks. And it's just like all these moments where it's like that establishing shot gives us honestly nothing but a sense of the world and atmosphere outside of these rooms.
Yeah. And the scale, which is like when Krennic, I mean, imagine being in this room with not only Partagas as your boss, but fucking Orson Krennic. And you're like, I'm going to have to be the one who makes him believe that I can solve this. And we get like, he's like, basically Krennic's like, who are you? Right? He gets a little bit of the who are you. He's like, what's your name? It's such an intimidating place for here to have to be. And it was interesting to watch the dance between the three of them, given what we will then see transpire just between Partagas and Krennic. And I loved the language that Krennic used, when he said that they would get that image blasted, get it everywhere, as wide and deep and far as it takes. And I was like, how did Krennic get a hold of the Cyril Dedra fanfic we've been working on, Joe? How? Wow. It's just waiting for him to say and then turn out the lights.
I know turn out the lights should be the name of the fanfic, but should it be as wide and deep and far as it takes?
Bad baby.
Oh my God. This is where they're like, well, all right, what's the charge? Is it sedition? Is it murder? And Party says she's diseased and escaped the hospital, infectious, a threat to all. Okay. Got to think of Marva again here, right? We have to. The speech, the hollow at the funeral. We let it grow and now it's here. It's here and it's not visiting anymore. It wants to stay. The Empire is a disease that thrives in darkness. It is never more alive than when we sleep. Partagas using the language.
Can I counter your quote with another quote?
Please.
Season 1 Partagas.
Really, Iris?
We are healthcare providers. We treat sickness. We identify symptoms. The longer we wait to identify a disorder, the harder it is to treat the disease. That's him describing what the ISB does. I love this.
So good.
To your point, like having the same language come from a Marva and a Partagas is wild. Also, it sort of goes back to what I was saying about that idea of like, Kleya is not actually diseased, but this idea of this information is poison.
Yeah.
And as soon as Lonni touches it, and as soon as
nothing could be more
Luthen touches it,
and
it's just sort of like that person dies, and that person dies, and that person dies. And it's true to a certain degree.
I was thinking of death and funerals in the next part of this scene.
As you often are.
As I often am. Because I was really, the way that Partagas was sort of like chuckling and laughing to himself, that kind of nervous laughter that you have at a funeral, you can have, it's like this sort of like, I'm observing the irony of the situation. I'm uncomfortable. I don't know how to process this and what has happened to us and the thing that we've tried to wrap our fingers around, that imperial chokehold. I just loved this. And Death Star, what a prescient turn of phrase. Fantastic stuff from Partagas as always. That guy knows something about a turn of phrase. And Krennic replying to this by just saying immediately, I can't protect you, Leo. We had been texting with Chris about this. He told us it was like his favorite line. And then he brought it up to Gilroy on the watch. And like, it was really cool to hear them talk about this. And I loved the way that Chris framed it. I really agree. Like, there is an entire history between these two people that is captured in that one utterance. And like, we don't know the particulars of their history together, but we can kind of understand all of the true things about it.
Is this how we keep Tony Gilroy working at the Star Wars salt mines forever? We just like threaten him with like, if you don't write it, someone else will write the Orson Lio backstory.
God.
Have you seen the memes of, sorry to be like the have you seen the memes person?
Meme lord today. Yeah.
You usually are more on top of the memes than I am, but have you seen the memes of the like sort of like the Lisan Al Gaib from Doom Part 2, it's like he says he's not the Mahdi, and that makes him the Mahdi more than ever, but like applied to Tony Gilroy. It's like Tony Gilroy's like, I don't want to do Star Wars. And they're like, that's what makes you perfect to do Star Wars.
Oh man. Reluctant destiny, Tony. You keep talking about it in your interviews. Here
I don't want it. Here's the deal. Krennic says, we're moments away, days, and Partagas like tosses his head incredulously, like
Yeah.
snorts, like
Yes.
likely story. Again, says like save the sermon. He knows Krennic is in trouble too.
Yeah.
And Partagas will be dead before the day is out, essentially.
Yeah.
Krennic will be dead in a matter of days. They're dead. These are dead men.
Best of luck to both of us.
Hirt also dead.
Man, I love the little nod after the best of luck to both of us. I like that just this, again, if these are people with a history together, it doesn't mean there's like just such fondness and love and adoration and affection, but there is history. And it's like, and this is what they say to each other in the moment of the reckoning. I can't save you and you should have been ready. Man.
Bad luck.
How dare it? You sound like Tarkin.
Bad luck, Partagas.
Bad luck, Corbin. Bad luck, Partagas. You sound like Tarkin. That was like a sick burn, honestly. That's a mean thing to say to someone. You sound like Tarkin.
I don't know. Tarkin has incredible elocution and really good cheekbones.
Yeah.
So.
But the guy saying that thinks that he sucks. So
Do you think Hirt is related to Tarkin? Do you think he's like his nephew? Or something like that.
The facial structure is just remarkably similar.
The cheekbones.
And it's time for mission Kleypossible. Let's get Kleya. Okay. Here. It's like I pushed out the order. I got to go visit my old boss, Dedra. This is when she's just like wearing her Imperial uniform, but without any of the stuff on it. What did you think it looked more like, a prison jumper or like a straight jacket?
Oh, that's funny. Okay, first of all, hair slightly askew. Also, when she hears someone coming, she stands up and she straightens it, and then she sees it's here, and she's like,
fuck it, I'm getting back in my chaise.
Yeah, she's like, never mind.
I'm stretching. I won't stand for you.
I know you're someone important.
Striver.
Yeah.
Great. Those little touches do just like, I mean, it's just so good.
It's really good. Love it. Oh, it's fucking Hirt. Okay.
She knows though right away what it means. Luthen's dead. Right.
Yeah.
And it's all on you now, Young's best friend. We were never friends. I know the feeling. We talked about this already and what this meant to us. We got a really great email about this.
Rachel wrote in to say, the rebellion thrives when individuals and the cause they serve coexist. The Alliance needs Cassian to struggle with how much to give, needs him to resist hierarchy and control. Without his independence, Cassian never would have gone to Scarif against the Alliance orders. Accommodating people, flawed, messy people, ultimately serve the rebellion, while Cyril's entrepreneurial spirit could only be a liability for the Empire. I think showing us this false tension between personal identity and community says something profoundly optimistic about pluralistic democracy. The cause is better for accommodating Cassian's capriciousness. People with their doubts and failures in tow can never subsume themselves entirely. The work then is building a world that welcomes in privileged Chandrillans, Phyrexian rogues, Rhino huffers, and true believers alike, keeping us close enough to each other that one can pick up the slack, another chooses to let go. So that idea of individuals and mini rebellions inside of a larger rebellion, this idea of like alliance, uneasy as it might be, friction, we see Mon and Saw butting heads, like as much friction and conflict as there might be, this idea of like, but there's a common enemy that we have to keep in line, and we need those mini rebellions inside of the larger rebellion.
Right.
Meanwhile, over the ISB, one to out of line, and you're
no friends. No friends, no one listening. They both have a North Star, but one of them is pure and one of them is brittle. Great stuff. What a wonderful email that was.
Phyrexian rogues, privileged Chandrillans, Rhino huffers.
Rhino huffers. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I would have liked Saw in the Hollow to be just like, take one hit, but we've got Rogue One coming. Here it's like, why is this a Krennic project? And Dedra says, is this a test? Incredible.
Yeah.
But no, he's here for advice, which of course, like, is very tasty in a couple different ways. She was the one who was like, you're not going to come to me? You're not going to ask for my advice? You don't want this? And now here he is, right? Needing her help. But also there's like a tactic at play from him because he is appealing to her ego by saying,
Flattering
oh, I
him,
did need
Anthony.
you after all,
Yeah.
actually. Like you
Yeah.
could see something here that I can't. And she does have something to share, right? She points him to check the old Axis files. There were radios. We found one on Ferrix. We found one with Krieger. Old frequencies, pulse codes. And that takes us to the gallery where Lepori, our new favorite character, I was like, where have I seen this person recently? And then went to the IMDb and realized that she's on Industry.
I
Is
just saw
iconic
her
on Industry.
I know you. I was just talking to you about this episode of Doctor Who from this season.
Yes.
She's like the lead guest star of that episode of Doctor Who. She's incredibly good.
Fun.
The actress's name is Keelan Dunn. It is a very hard to spell Irish name, and I looked at the pronunciation. I believe I am close, but I tried. She's incredible.
Really good.
I love her in this moment. She's so good.
I thought the moment where she's like very impressed,
Oh,
right?
she's
gushing
like,
about the
"This is
setup.
brilliant.
Like,
My Kleya
oh my
did."
God, the
Yeah.
splice, the tower, they're using the strength of the Imperial broadcast and that, like the smile and then looking and Joy Dolly is like,
No, I wouldn't.
no, I wouldn't.
I simply wouldn't.
I would not.
The
I would
fact
not
that
praise them
there's-
in front of here.
There's space inside of Andor for
So good.
the hospital security guy, and this like woman nerding out over the comms is just why this show is so special.
Totally agree.
More blinking lights, more red lights, more signals being sent and received.
And it's time for everybody to converge on the safe house, the not-so-safe house pretty soon. Cass, Melshi, K2 arrive above Coruscant. Melshi's like, I've never been here. And K2's like, I was in a parade with the Emperor once.
By the way, parades for the Emperor,
Oh my God.
parades for Hitler.
Not good, Kay.
And I don't know if you know this, but Donald Trump has decided to have a massive taxpayer-funded military parade on his birthday this year. Just putting that
Christ.
out there in the universe. Still all true.
Christ almighty. Are you current on the rehearsal?
No.
I was thinking of the rehearsal. One of the most remarkable things that's ever happened on television is currently happening in season 2 of the rehearsal. I won't get into particulars. It involves pilots and the relationship between pilots and co-pilots. This is a season-long pursuit. And so when Cass was like, I'm taking over, it's like, oh my God, we're in a rehearsal episode all of a sudden, but we weren't. Cassian tells him to keep the engines running, and Kay's like, great little setup for Rogue One. Of course, he will not stay on the ship as he is supposed to.
Stay in the
Jedha
car,
either.
okay.
It's like, nope,
No.
not for me. And honestly, thank God. Thank
I
God.
love this moment before Cassie and Melshi go into the building, and Melshi's like, "Are you okay?" Because of course he's thinking about like being there with Bix. This is a home. This is as dilapidated as it may be. This is a home he made with Bix.
Yeah.
before.
When they get up to the 27th and Melshi's like, is this it? Is this right? And the way that Cassie was like, it's been a while.
Yeah.
Like, look how it has changed this place. Oh my God.
It's
Yeah,
been
that was
2
sad.
weeks. It's been 2 weeks, aka
It's been
2
half
years.
a month for the people at home. Here tells Partagaz that they have a location. Tactical's en route. He's going to lead the operation personally. What could go wrong? This guy seems seasoned and trustworthy in the
When
field.
he gets his little essentially
I know.
Kevlar vest, which will do him no good.
If only it were
Um,
Kevlar. I mean, this shit is like fucking Tupperware.
It reminded me a lot of Cyril Karn on Ferrix.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not. He can't quite match the like. I'm in a dumb little hat and I'm attempting to make a speech, and Mosk is making very amusing faces behind. Oh, sir!
But it's still
But still pretty good.
we get another iconic space cockney and this mustachioed guy
Oh, my
who's leading
God.
the charge here. Great stuff.
First and final warning. This is your first and last. That was great stuff. ISB hot zone. They shut down the comms, right? All frequencies other than their own. And Kay is like, what?
Uh-oh.
Time to spring into action, and he does. Cassian knocks on the door. It's the secret knock. It's the code knock. But Kleya is, of course, on guard. And it's only when Cassian speaks aloud and calls Luthen's name that she opens the door and says, as you mentioned earlier, it would be you, wouldn't it? And this was just like perfect, right?
Yeah.
This idea of Cassian as this central figure, not only in this story, but this slice of galactic history and like what we heard from the Force Healer last arc, gathering as they go. There's a purpose to it. He's a messenger. There's some place he needs to be. And then from Luthen that like the place he needs to be is always a new place. and he's always there. You appeared when I needed you, is what Luthen said. And so, of course, he appears here. And of course, he's there for Kleya. And of course, later when he's describing it to the very frustrating non-quorum council, he's like, an old friend needed me. Like an old friend needed my help. Absolutely loved it. Kleya tells him what happened. This is obviously very important. What Cassian hears here. This is very important. This is like a direct bridge to Rogue One. Galen Erso, say it! Galen Erso? I loved it. This was great. And this is where he starts to just say, like, you can't stay here.
This is when I was certain that she was going to die. I was like, oh, she passed the message along. R.I.P. Kleya. It's a miracle.
I can't believe she made it out of this.
I cannot believe it. It's amazing.
I know.
That's like one, it's like what a fun trick that Andor played, where it's like so many shows were like, oh my God, they tried to shock us with the death. This shocked me with how many people lived.
Yeah.
Will lives, Vel lives, sick. Bix lives. Okay, great.
Say the most important one. B.
Oh. Dedra?
Yeah, I guess in a fashion, yeah.
Not you, Lonni. Okay.
B2, yeah, not Lonni, but we will honor him on his bench one day. God damn it. Yavin. Kleya's not into it. She says, I know what they think of Luthen. She wants Cassian to be the messenger. You tell them what I've just told you. And I love the way that Cassian not only refused to leave her behind, but was like, you need to tell them. And then, as we're going to build to at the top of the next episode, one of the contenders for, best line of the thing, you need to see the place you helped build, which was, I thought, just really, truly, truly incredible.
I also love at the top of the next episode, good old Melshi back on his somebody needs to tell them beat. Yeah. People need to know. Yep. Melshi's like, I have one thing that I know. Two things. Revnog, delicious.
Gotta spread the word.
Somebody needs to tell them. So
Narkina, this. Good old Melshi. Yeah. Seems like a great hang.
So this is a day. This is a night. A night that began with a Revnog fueled game into the rescue of Kleya, into bringing her back to Yavin, her in the infirmary, her wandering in the rain, Vel giving her tea. She sleeps in Vel's tent and wakes up to the dawn that is the end of the episode.
Is there not daylight behind them on Coruscant when they're leaving? Is it not day?
It's like twilight. So you think it was nighttime when they were playing the Rianza game, and then they get to I guess it's like twilight. Okay, so that's day. So it's a cheat. It's 3.2 days, 3.1 days is what this arc is. That we're saying. Okay.
Oh man, we get our cliffhanger, and then we go into the final episode. Jedha,
I couldn't
Kyber,
believe
Erso. I know. It was wild. It really was wild. We pick back up right with this conversation about Yavin. After all of this, what a bitter ending. Nothing's ending. You're keeping Luthen alive. Big words. Ugh. So I also love,
there are multiple, there's like a shot of Kleya inside of this safe house earlier when she's all alone. There's also, so there's like a shot from Partagas after Krennic walks out. Partagas slumped over his chair, sort of like leaning down on the desk, cut to Kleya in the same position in the safe house, shot through this sort of narrow gap in the wall, so it looks like everything is closing in around on her, and we get a similar shot of Melshi and Cassian and Kleya, again, through sort of like a section of wall, so again, it just like looks like everything's closing in around them. So good.
Oh, man, I love that. Whew. I thought that you need to see the place you helped build was like one of a few examples, but like one of the moments where it felt like the show was stating its mission directly, right? Like all of the people who helped do this thing in a way that we did not previously understand. Like that is what this story is exploring. All of the small hands who do it because they must.
Yeah.
And whether they get to see the sunrise or they get to feel the gratitude, they were a part of making it. And like, I loved hearing Cassian especially be the one to pitch that. I just thought that was like really powerful and really cool.
Cassian offering up hope to someone else and being the one to draw someone else. Again, like watching him do this as he will thinking about as he will do this for Jin. You know what I mean? Like that he is in, again, as we've been tracking this like leadership role.
Yeah.
We haven't really seen Cassian on this like much of like a hard recruit path. You know, we saw him talking to the bellhop on Gorman and like sort of the seeds that he planted there. But like this gambit of like, come to Yavin, like we're doing something there. And you get to, you know, see that sunrise. Like Luthen didn't, but you get to come with us.
Right.
It's really good.
No one can do this alone. I had to learn that. And now I can give that to you as a gift because rebellions are built on hope. Not sure if you've heard. Not sure if it's come up.
Once or twice.
Great stuff. It's fight time. Fun little action sequence here.
I sir. We have
Tuck-in, sir was great. I really loved the cut from the ISB command center where they're like, what happened to the feed? To the soldier's head smashed into
seeping blood into the controls. Yeah.
Kleya defeated, has conceded the point on the Yavin front. She's like, fine, I'll go with you to your fucking rebel base. She's got her little satchel. And this is when Melshi opens the door, sees them all, and is like, ducks back in. Cassian says, don't close it. Chaos ensues. They toss this stun grenade. And this was another moment where I was like, Kleya is toast.
Dead.
Like, holy shit. I mean, Cassian probably should have gone through concussion protocol before going into the events of Rogue One. He seemed like he took a pretty hard bump to the noggin as well. Melshi was kind of fine. And it's really
seemed completely fine.
Totally fine. It's the Revnog.
Yeah, he probably like flopped pretty loosely. I have to say, with love and respect to Cassian and Kleya, two characters who I really admire. They just stared at that stun grenade for a while.
I know. Kick it into the hallway.
Duck and cover, like something, you know, brace yourself. No.
Everyone's really stressed, you know. It's a tough, high intensity day. But yeah, I was like, is anyone going to try to kick it? No.
Nope.
No one's going to do a Steve Rogers either. Like, no one's going to dive on top of it. Try to spare the others.
Oh, I know what you meant, but like, who would do that? No one. Just Steve.
Yeah, just Steve. That's why Steve. That's why he's Cap. But K2 is here. So we're good. We're good. This is just an absolute annihilation path through these, as you noted earlier. So now I feel bad for laughing. Human beings who seem very stressed about having to do this, at least some of them.
Yeah, but they're assholes who work for the Empire, so fuck them.
Indeed.
You know?
Indeed. Cassian have cleared a path, and he has. And so it is time to make the push on Yavin.
Yeah, as they leave, again, with Melshi giving the officer and gentleman carry to Kleya, Cassian gives like one last sad look to the safe house.
I was waiting to see if they were going to blow it like they did Gorst's office, but...
No. And this is the a Cassian hero walk to the camera that we get. Excellent use of this set this season, right? We used it for Bix and Cass. We used it for Mon, and we used it for Kleya. I thought that was just like brilliant.
I agree. I love that as well. And now I want to know what those couple nights were that Luthen spent there previously, you know, that he alluded to.
And also, whose job was it to hide radios and concrete? And
for sure, Kleya, no question. Yeah,
she's like, I know I bricked in a radio here somewhere.
Oh man, Brazo did not get a stone, but Kleya got plenty of concrete mixing training in.
Okay. It wasn't your finest hour, but I still support you.
Stone for Brazo. I just wanted to say it one more time.
No stone for Brazo, but concrete mixture.
Oh God.
All right.
Melshi tending to Kleya.
With very gentle hands, I should note. And I would say, were he not to die in a couple days, and were I not fully on board of the Vel and Kleya train, I would ship it. But
no, he's not around for long. Yeah,
very gentle hands.
Yeah, that was nice. That guy has handled a full shot class a time or two. Oh, Melshi, great stuff with Melshi. Truly, we head back. We're flying into Yavin, and before Cass returns, we get to witness a really fun scene where our guy Saw Gerrera calling in with some real zingers via Holo. But before we talk about what Saw says, we must once again go to Wig Watch TM with Joanna Robinson TM to talk about Mon Mothma.
In order to get to this particular Wig Watch segment, we have to walk through what Patton Oswalt once called in a stand-up routine a sparks factory. They're just like constantly welding in Yavin. They're just like, we got sparks flying everywhere always. Okay, anyway, we walk through the sparks factory to get to Mon. And here it is, the sad Yavin hair.
Say what you texted to me and Chris. You called this the saddest death in the show.
I didn't remember saying that. I mean, Jenny Viv O'Reilly is still like absolutely still beautiful, stunning.
The prior Mon hair was like electric. Though.
Yeah. So this is a sad come down. However, I will say, shout out to the costume department for really trying to thread the needle on this, bed sheet look that Mon has used elsewhere. Here's a quote from the costume designer. When she takes off her council robes, they're like, get the bed sheets off of her. She has an extremely simple and more relaxed look underneath. She has a long top, trousers, and boots that to me are the signal of her future. She's sitting down with people at the breakfast table and not putting herself on a pedestal. She's really rolling up her sleeves and working out how to move forward with the Rebel Alliance.
I did like that. I liked it was like Mon's in her athleisure for breakfast with Vel. Wait till she learns about leather pants from Kleya.
She's not some intergalactic superstar senator. She needs to be with the people, collaborate, and wear clothes for a jungle setting. So I was worried that we would just be swathed in sheets, but I liked it when we saw her like Eileen Fisher separates that she was wearing.
It was great. As was this exchange that Mon is largely leading. I mean, Bail is there, Draven is there. They're chatting with Saw. As we've discussed on other Andor pods previously, not the first time that Mon and Saw have gotten into it over the years. Not the first time that Saw and anyone else in the Rebel Alliance have gotten into it. Just going to hit some highlights. Why should I believe anything you say? What you know? What you hear? Poking at my window? How many more meddling squealers have you sent my way? Great moment after when Bail's like, he's crazy, and Draven's like, no, actually, he's right. We have infiltrated and we are spying on him. That's how we know the things we know.
When he says meddling squealers, timeline-wise, he's not talking about Bodhi yet, right? Or is he?
I don't think so. Bodhi should be coming shortly, though.
But like, how long is Bodhi in before they arrive?
Could be there.
So in my heart, because I love Rizam, this Bodhi is the titular meddling squealer.
Let's rewatch and see if we can spot a Borgullet tentacle in the background of the Holo at any point. It's entirely possible.
Deception.
Wonderful stuff. If only you could fight as well as you lie, might be the winner. That was fucking unbelievable.
Very good.
Obviously, this is Saw Days right on the brink of the peak paranoia state that we find him in Rogue One, and he has completed his journey from cutting himself off completely from the people who should be his allies, and it is actually really quite sad.
This is Tubes erasure.
Tubes erasure.
Tubes is still there.
Tubes is still there. That's true. We all have friends everywhere, I guess, as long as we have a Tubes. That's nice. Nobody here knows yet that Luthen is dead, so this could not have actually happened, but I did feel sort of sad that we didn't get to see Saw learn that Luthen had died, just given the nature of their relationship. That would have been fascinating.
Yeah.
Radis is like, Draven, come here. We got to talk. The U-Wing's coming back, and if Merrick had been here, he'd shoot it down, so we're lucky he's away. And we would just like to state for the record on this podcast that Radis can fuck off, and that not today, nor ever, will we agree that we are lucky that Merrick is away, because we are never lucky. We are never lucky that Blue Leader Ben Daniels is not with us.
Rogue
This was
One's
outrageous.
Rogue One is where I met Ben Daniels. And I believe I've told you that I used to call him Captain Handsome Mustache. And
Appropriate.
of course we talked about him a lot when we talked about Rings of Power this last season. I don't know if he's not in this show because he was filming Interview with Vampire season 2, in which he is incredible, or if, with love and respect, not all of us can pretend to look the way we did that many years ago. You know what I mean?
He still looks great, though.
He looks amazing, but I'm not sure he looks, the way he did in Rogue One. I also thought they kept like some other people in somewhat soft focus in the council meeting. Anyway, we're doing our best.
Oh man. They land. It's like, she's injured, needs care. Let's get her to the infirmary. And then Draven's like, all right, you have some stuff to fill us in on. Takes Cassian to meet with the council. There's no quorum, but here's who we have. Draven, Bail, Mon, Radis, Jebel, Pamlo, still the worst, both of them, as always. Just awful. Awful. So unlikable and terrible.
Not great people.
Oh, man. Cassian fills them in, tells them energy project covered for the super weapon. They're like, oh, we know all about the energy project.
We've been funding it for years without details or inspection.
Amazing stuff. And it's like, for so many of these former senators to have to confront the way that Palpatine used like the official power to then work his shadow operation, and an interesting thing. I mean, obviously they're here because they've rebelled against Palpatine. So the continued insights, like even after leaving Coruscant, a fascinating thing to think about. And they ask what kind of weapon, and Cassian's like, I don't know yet. You're going to have to stay tuned for Rogue One. Come on.
I don't know. I haven't answered Tivik's call yet. I don't know. Here's where I have to. Okay. He says there's a tie to Gorman, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Jedha.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's like, Kleya repeated some words to me. I can repeat them back to you. Right?
And Mon's like, oh, Gorman, I'm invested. Draven's like, oh, Jedha, we're spying there. Get some meaningful looks from both of them. Yeah.
You've already mentioned like that you like the Pamlo Jebel sort of like infighting that we get here, and that it makes you think about more about Rogue One. Were you thinking about the Maya Pei Brigade and the way in which they are important founding members of the spirit of disagreement that exists inside of the Rebel Alliance? Were you like,
sure,
the spirit of the Maya Pei Brigade is alive and well at this council meeting?
I was thinking of it as we panned over, thinking of them as we panned over Yavin, and I thought about the wild creatures in the jungle who had eaten them. Yeah.
Okay. You think of them as kibble, I think of them as inspirations. We're not the same.
This is what an alliance is. That's what Andor has taught us. Oh, man. I genuinely really love your affection for the Maya Pei Brigade. It makes me happy.
If they had all died together on a bench, I would go visit it and lay down some, I don't know, biscuits. What was it they were eating? Anyway.
They would not have died together on a bench. They would have died together scattered across the plaza where they were on opposite sides shooting at each other.
2 different benches. Both alike in dignity. Okay.
Joe, convenient wrappers, paranoid fantasies. These are some of the things that we hear. And, we got to say, Bail Organa, an important figure in Star Wars history, is not exactly ready to accept this either, right? And Bail and Radis are kind of like, the ISB was onto Luthen. It's just as likely that they were feeding him false information than Radis even has the fucking gall to imply, or worse. I was like, how dare you?
Bob Radis.
Oh my God. And we get just a great moment from Cassian here, and a great moment for the Cassian-Luthen relationship, because Cassian's like, it's the opposite. The reason that I know this is real is because I know Luthen. Do any of you? When I say I know Luthen, I mean I know the good and the bad. I know what was wrong with him. I had a front row seat to that. And I made my choice 2 years ago to join here and be part of this. But none of that can take away from what he did and how hard it was. I don't know if what he was told was true or not, but it's insulting to hear him run down by people who have given a fraction of his sacrifice to this rebellion.
I think Will was just outside the room, like snapping. He's just like, preach, Cass.
I'd like to think so. Yeah, I hope that someone like played this for Kleya later in the infirmary when she was healing. Maybe Vel shared it with her later in the comfort of their new home.
The light of gratitude.
The light of fucking gratitude, dude. Yeah. I was thinking of Luthen describe it when talking about Cassian at the beginning of the show.
Mhm.
Like, special people are hard to find. And how cool it was for inside of these very complicated relationships, some of the people who knew Luthen the best, good and bad, balance in the Force, right? To talk about him that way. Like, to talk about and remember how special he was, how unique he was, how the things that he did had like a bearing and a consequence and a weight and a heft that could not be replicated. And I just thought that was like really cool and in some ways much more powerful than like just somebody who had hero worshipped Luthen coming in and saying it, right? Like, that's not what this was for them. And I really liked that Cassian was such a staunch believer, like not a defender of Luthen's morality, but a believer in what he had achieved and what he was trying to achieve even still. Like, I just really, really loved that. Bale's like, when did you last speak though?
Last week.
Fucking guys.
A year ago, last week,
man,
when I rescued Mon Mothma from the Senate,
because
your team had a spy sent by Lonni, the goat. Duly noted.
Duly noted. Luthen was the character who said to Saw in episode 8 of season 1, "Aren't you tired of fighting with people who agree with you?" And the fact that Luthen was then in that place at the end is like very tragic. It really is like so deeply tragic, but that's why he's an interesting character.
It's so interesting to me. You keep bringing up this Saw conversation because like,
yeah,
my read on that is a little different in that like, I think because he wanted something from Saw inside of that, he was selling him something because he was constantly disagreeing with Mon. Like, Luthen was like the king of my way or the highway.
Yeah. Alliance under me.
Yeah.
Now you want me to go to your base? No.
Yeah. No.
Absolutely not. And that's sad. I like the way that Gilroy talked on the watch about the originators of a movement and like his interest in them and what happened to them. And it's interesting to think about, like, you know, we talked about this a lot last episode, but you know, Mon and Bale have been involved from the start, and Luthen and Saw from the start, and all in different ways. And where did they all end up and why? It's like such the show's ability to explore that was
who gets to stay with the rebellion, who is outgrown by the rebellion. I get sad thinking about what happens with Mon Mothma.
I know.
Tough. Everything's tough. Okay.
It's time to reflect. It's time to remember.
Okay. Before they say, Cass, you're confined to quarters. Yeah. And he's like, can I do a quick trip to the infirmary? And Draven's like, sure, I'll babysit you there. And then they just forget that Cassian's confined to quarters. Because like Cassian just then goes and talks to Will and sort of does whatever he wants. So I'm just saying, if you're going to ground a kid, you got to like enforce it, or else they'll never learn any boundaries.
I mean, he's famous here in Yavin for following orders. So I don't know, you know, since he's never disobeyed an order before. He goes to see Kleya after this exchange with Draven, where he learns about Tivik. I liked that when he heard he was there one more day, won't talk to anyone but you. And Cassie's like, that doesn't sound very promising. No. It's like, well, it's not gonna be for Tivik.
Nope.
Ultimately. I really loved the way, like, when they were talking about Tivik and Draven asked if he trusted him, and Cass said, I try. And that made me think again of the try idea, and Nemec and try.
When he said I try, I was just like, Nemec, exclamation mark in my notes. Like, absolutely. That idea of like, yeah, try. Just keep trying. One foot in front of the other. Slow march towards, you know, your inevitable death on a beach somewhere. But listen, you will have made it worth it. And that's what really matters. Yeah, I love this. I love him visiting Kleya and saying, not the hero's welcome he promised. I love holding himself accountable for that.
It's going to take time. It's going to take some time.
And And then talking to Will about Luthen also, like he made it worth it. That idea of like that's the philosophy.
Yes.
If we die, make it worth it. And so when thinking about Cassian and
Don't
Jin,
you want to give it all for something real? Yeah.
Cassian and Jin at the end of Rogue One, like it was worth it.
Right.
What we fought for was worth it. So yeah.
I love that. Mon asks Vel, help me believe him.
I love that. And can I just note something really quickly? I forgot to bring this up when we talked about Vel previously, but I love to see her with this red hair, which like I assume is her because it's Mon's hair color too, her natural hair color. But I just love to see that connection between the cousins, like, you know, who are no longer like, I mean, pretending not to know each other in certain ways. And it's just sort of like, yeah.
Yeah, and you get to just see, like, they understand that they're spending a lot of time together. Like when Mon shows up, I was like, oh, I thought we were having breakfast together. And then they will.
Yeah,
like they're in each other's lives. They don't have to go these long months without knowing if the other one is okay.
Or pretend or putting on a show as they are together. Yeah.
Yeah. He should stop saving people. That's what Vel says of Cassian when Mon fills her in and says he's grounded. We know what Bix would say. It's not up to us what we save. And Cassian's like, what if it could be? But also then I have to confront that it isn't always. Life. Sad. And Vel goes to visit Cassian. And before she brings up why she's there and what Mon wants to know, Cassian asks her if she'll drink to Luthen.
Just this once, she says, right?
Dude, this was magical.
This was so beautiful. They have this toast. Revnog? Cassian says they can't toast them all. And then she starts with Gorn, with Nemik, with Terriman. He says, Cinta. Not you, Evan Musback, Greg.
Yeah. Skeen doesn't get a mention.
Skeen, Betrayer, no mention. Okay. The Gormans, Ferrix, your mother, the Donnies, and then he says, Al Donnie. Like that idea of like wrapping in like the Donnies, the Gormans, the Donnies.
Yes.
But like also those are the people, but Ferrix a place, Aldani a place. What did the Empire take from us? These entire places, these entire communities.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't fully take it because Stone and Sky is like still alive with us, you know what I mean? But this is so when he said Cinta, oh my God. Like thinking about when Vel and Cassian met each other in season 1, that like very caustic hike to the camp, another long walk. Just we watched them hike for a very long time to get to their camp.
Yeah.
And she does not want him there, and she does not want him there for really. And then she was like tasked to kill him at the end of season 1. So like them finding common cause, but also like, you know, we've never heard Cass talk about Cinta since. You know what I mean? And it's just sort of like, but he knows
what that meant to her. Yeah.
And freaking Vel was there for the Marva speech. You know what I mean? So it's like, again, similar to the like, I can't protect you, Leo line that Chris loves so much. There's a lot of like his, you know, the fact that Vel knows Bix, but we haven't seen them together that much. You know, like what is all the history that we missed? And like, again, I don't feel it in a, I missed it, so I don't understand it way. I feel like I understand what these 4 weeks / 4 years has done to change the relationship between these people.
Yeah. I loved, I mean, obviously Aldani, I think they shared directly, and, you know, Gorman too, in different periods of time there. And like, but yeah, your mother really got me too, because like thinking of how they were waiting on Ferrix, watching, spying, just like the Empire was, you know?
Yeah.
And like to think about then the evolution of their relationship together over time is really incredible. I thought this was such a great, beautiful way for us to be sharing this experience with the characters as they shared it with each other, and just to like reflect and remember and mourn the people who we like lost and miss and love. And yeah, the Gormans, it's like the Donnie, you know, all the people who they didn't know their entire lives or ever fall in love with, but still chose to help. And like, that's what this is. That's what this is about. that's what the rebellion is, you know?
I love that Gorn and Terriman are mentioned here because like we talk about Nemec all the time when we talk about Aldani, and we talk about Cinta obviously because of what has happened, and like I don't know, I'm sure occasionally we talk about Skeen, but like we don't talk about Gorn and Terriman, but they were there and they mattered and they were part of this as well. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
So good. Vel tells him why she's there. She's basically like, Mom wants to.
Vel always says this.
I love this.
She's like, here's why I'm here.
She's great. She's great. And this is where Cassian says Luthen died for this. Does it matter what he did to us along the way? Does it matter how it twisted him? None of this exists without him. I think it's great that the show has characters who would say yes and no to that, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's just it's not a simple equation at all. So there's the equation Luthen wrote, and then there's the equation the show wrote, and they're both very complicated. I was just like, I don't know. I've been thinking of obviously Marva's mentioned in the toast. I know I've been talking about her a lot the last 2 pods, and like she's just. I guess the whole way, you know, since we talked about her picture being there with them on Mina Rao, and the part of Marva's speech that I was thinking about here was like this parallel in like how you influence after you're gone, you know? I was always eager, always waiting to be inspired. I remember every time it happened, every time the dead lifted me with their truth. And now I'm dead and I yearn to lift you. Not because I want to shine or even be remembered. It's because I want you to go on. And that they're finding their version of that with Luthen now too. It's just like amazing.
I was thinking about that quote too in the context of like the relay race, right, that we talk about, but also like if you think about Marva's from beyond the grave hollow message echoing through history, Nemec's manifesto echoing through history, Kino Loy message like echoing through history. It's just and thinking about like Kino and Marva and Luthen and Nemec and these big speeches from season 1 that were such showstoppers, but they weren't just like flashy television. They are just sort of like messages that are woven into the heart of this larger story that we're telling, and we keep going back to them. Not, you know, that there's other moments in television where you're like, great monologues of television. You know what I mean? Like when we covered White Lotus, Bill Simmons was like, is this the greatest monologue talking about White Lotus? And that made us think of TV monologues, but I can't think of another show where like the text, the philosophy, the thought behind these various speech moments is something that we return to again and again and again as we process how the characters move on beyond it. I just think it's so special what we've watched today.
I really agree. I love that. That's such a good point. We get to hear one of those. We get to hear it. Did you like freak out when Nemec's voice kicked in?
Quick pause. Before we get to Nemec, yes, of course. Alex Lothar. Alex Lothar, who I've said before, sounds to me just like Ben Whishaw, who has my favorite voice of all time, Paddington himself. But like when Cassian's talking to Vel and he says Kleya wouldn't lie about it, and Vel looks up when she hears Kleya's name, and then we get to Kleya, and as we hear this manifesto, when we get to Alone, Unsure, that's when we see Kleya pulling at her tubes and walking into the rain. It's just like very good. I mean, Partagas listening to it being revealed as like diegetic sound inside of Partagas's office is like an all-timer.
Yeah.
But like hearing it over Kleya as she sort of similar to Cassian at the end of season 1 sort of walks into this new phase of rebellion is very powerful.
I loved it. And I loved bleeding from Yavin into ISBHQ and what those words mean in each of those contexts, right? Mm-hmm. Like this is the root and the heart of the cause. And then this is the reminder and the proof of why you failed and why the thing that you were trying to do was never going to last. So good. When Legret walked in and Partagas stopped playing the recording and said, I'm assuming you've heard it before. Bits and pieces, just keeps spreading, doesn't it? It's hard to contain. I was just like...
The fact that the section that says, where Nemec says, tyranny requires constant effort, it breaks, it leaks. And Partagas just looks so weary as he hears that part. I mean, he's about to, departagas, like, leave this earth. But like, I don't know. I want Nemec's Manifesto to play over every scene of television. Like, I just think it's so strong and so powerful.
Oh my God. There will be times when the struggle seems impossible. It's just so fucking good. And this is like the Empire confronting.
I have never regretted that we can't play clips on a podcast more than I regret we can't listen to Nemec's Manifesto right now.
Well, it's a long one. This is the meaty soundbite. It's just so good. It occurs spontaneously and without instruction. And this is the moment, right? The thing that he is describing, like one single thing will break the siege. Partagas staring that in the face, confronting it, the ISB, the Empire over the coming days. Like Luthen said, to Dedra, the rebellion has flown away. It's everywhere. They can't stop it. They can't contain it. They have lost. Like, the shot has not been fired into the Death Star yet, but they have lost. And I just thought it was remarkable to see that reckoning on Partagas's face here.
I also love this, like, Legret being here again. Yeah. Like, Lonnie's dead. Here it's a puppet and dead. Dedra's in prison. Levin got disappeared between seasons. We don't know. And so it's like, it's just Legret left.
Yeah.
This moment where, Partagas is like, I just need a minute, right? And Legret knows exactly what he's going to do.
Yeah.
And lets him do it.
Yes.
And that moment when you hear the shot and Legret just sort of like wordlessly signals
his hands to the troopers to stop them.
We know what this is.
Holy shit.
This is a suicide and we let him have that way out. It's again,
unbelievable scene.
I don't like fascists. No. And I would not want to have dinner with Partagas, but this is an all-time character, an all-time performance from Anton Lesser. And
really
I
is.
miss watching him.
He was a great character. So is your read that Cassian, who inherited this manifesto, put this out into the world? Our messenger?
He had to have.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah.
I just love that so much. What an incredible, wonderful thing.
And people have been in breaking down Cassian's costume in Rogue One and identifying Bix's blaster, etc. There's this like little square almost book that he has on his costume up here. And some people are like, is that Nemec's Manifesto? It isn't really, but like I choose to believe it is. I choose to believe that Cassian had Nemec's Manifesto by his like heart as he went into the events of Rogue One.
That makes me really happy. And it makes me think of how proud Marva would be of him. And she already was. She already was. Like Brazo, who didn't get a stone, but did get to tell Cassian in season 1 what Marva said. Tell him he knows everything he needs to know and feels everything he needs to feel. And when the day comes and those two pull together, he will be an unstoppable force for good. Tell him I love him more than anything he could ever do wrong. And this is where Cassian is. Unstoppable force for good. Like, this is what is happening. And that's why I was just like, when he stopped to water the plants before heading out on his long walk to the U-Wing, it's like that was Marva's ritual and that was what she did. And
Marva's there
doing that
Bix
for
is
her
there.
and she's there with him was just like, God, really overwhelming and so beautiful. Oh man. The road to Rogue. Bell has some advice for Cassian as they part. Reconnect with Bix. And what does he say, Joanna?
He says, once it settles down, maybe I'll think about it. And she says, don't wait too long. This is both painful, but also like maybe one moment where I was like, they pressed on the bruise a little too hard. Like, we're already, like, when Bix gave her speech at the end of the last arc and is like, when this is all over, find me. Like, I think we had already experienced this, but like, don't wait too long from Vel when we know Cass is about to die. I was just a little like, I already knew that. We already know that he's gonna wait too long. You didn't have to say the thing, but yeah, thinking about it coming from, of course, Vel.
Yes.
Who knows about Cinta? Yeah. Who knows from waiting for too long?
Yeah. I thought this was very, 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 very agonizing. Very, very agonizing. I liked hearing Gilroy talk with Chris and Andy about Bix and Cassian's relationship and their history, and the way he described them as like they were each other's first kiss. Got a real kick out of it being like them two really good looking people on Ferrex found each other in a hurry.
Well, I love like he was talking about how like he and his wife talk about these two kinds of marriages, that there's like the marriages where you grow together, you grow up together, and then the marriage where sort of like you meet each other when you're grown. And I kind of liked thinking about that as I continue to contemplate what this relationship with Bix means for how I view Jin. Like if Bix is the person, the marriage that he like grew up with, and then Jin, again, they knew each other for just a couple days, but like they have this very strong connection in Rogue One. If that's the person he meets when he's when he's already cooked. We've seen him arc through these like, you know, chunks of time so that he could meet Jin exactly where he needed to be who she needed to be in order to get through this very hard thing that they do together. And so thinking of it as like the two different kinds of the Gilroy marriages, I thought was really interesting.
I like that.
Shout out Tim, which Tony Gilroy did mention.
All the Tims. They can survive all the Tims. Yeah, we'll talk about this more when we get to Rogue One, but I will I will never watch Rogue One and you know their relationship as anything but completely platonic again for the rest of my life. So it's interesting.
I don't know. I think it's okay to like be attracted to someone, even if you're like, you know.
Yeah, I think there's a connection. But I think, you know, especially on the heels of this conversation with Val, it's like, though I don't know, maybe that's like they can survive all the Tims.
All the Tims and all the Jins in the world.
All the Tims and all the Jins. This is where Vel kind of like scoops up Kleya in the rain, brings her in. They talk about Luthen.
This is so important to me. This is so important to me.
All right.
I'm thinking about this in the context of like, well, first of all, we noted this at the very beginning of everything when sort of Vel clocked Kleya as a hot piece at the wedding. So that seed was planted right at the beginning. Just connecting these two characters again and giving this to Vel, who has been grieving Cinta, obviously. And it doesn't have to be romantic, but it definitely is romantic, I think. And I love this. She's like, you're here, you're with, like, she gives her wandering in the rain, and she's just like, here's a coat, here's a blanket, here's some warmth, here's some tea. We got this beautiful email from Gil, who again also wrote it. This is only part of a much, much longer email, but Gil wrote, Andor is fascinated by the motives of its revolutionaries: loss, vengeance, ideology, a yearning for freedom. For Vel, the catalyst is love, not abstract or romanticized, but embodied, reciprocal, and deeply personal. I'll pause here really quickly to say that elsewhere in his email, sorry, I actually don't know the gender of this person. Elsewhere in the email, they were writing about the idea of the Chandrillin, like transactional weddings and marriages, and how growing up inside of the high society of Chandrila, how like the idea of love is like not available to Mon Mothma. She has to marry Perrin, you know what I mean? So to back to the email, this idea of love embodied, reciprocal, and deeply personal. Vel doesn't seek escape from the past, but instead longs to build something more human in its wake. That's why she resists the emotional austerity that Luthen, Kleya, and Cinta embrace. She understands it, but refuses to adopt it. For Vel, love is not a distraction from the cause. It is the cause. In a world that seeks to deliberately sever connections between individuals and peoples and to punish intimacy and empathy, Vel sees it as the most radical act to insist on caring for others and to make friends everywhere. So when Kleya stumbles through the rain in the finale, believing she is now well and truly alone in her ever-compounding grief, all that remains of her people, all that remains of Luthen, and all that remains of the rebellion they built together, it is fitting that Vel is the one who finds her. Vel, whom Kleya had long viewed with suspicion for her refusal to abandon a woman whose violent isolation mirrors Kleya's own. As Vel wraps Kleya in one of her coats, there's a brief moment in which she holds Kleya's face in her hands. It is quick and almost thoughtless. And yet this is a gesture of facial recognition and care that is so loaded in this series. It was, after all, Kleya who ordered Vel to kill Cassian at the end of series 1 because he couldn't identify Luthen. He could identify Luthen. This repeats throughout the series multiple times. To be seen or recognizable is to invite or necessitate violence in response. In this very arc, we spend the overwhelming majority of our time watching as Kleya's identifiable features and allegiance are poured over by the Empire and the Rebellion alike as a target to exterminate, punish, and isolate her. Without a thought, Vel offers her jacket, her home, her food, and her bed. And for the first time in decades, Kleya sleeps through the night. She wakes rested to a sun that has already risen, a sun that she believed for years and as recently as yesterday that she would never see. Being seen by Vel and loved by her, Kleya defies each and every one of her own expectations and finds herself coming home. What's up, bad babies? You're the best. This was so beautiful. I was like really struck by the Vel and Kleya connection here at the end of all things. This idea that like when we meet Kleya in the opening of this arc and she hears the big bell ringing because she is not sleeping or not sleeping soundly inside of the showroom where they live. Mm-hmm. Like she's there in her jammies and her hair down, like she was in bed, but she wasn't resting. Yeah. She hasn't been resting. And here she gets to rest and wake up to the new dawn. And it's just really beautiful.
The smile on her face when she looks out at the place she helped build and gets to see it teeming with life and possibility and hope. That was like magical. Really, really, really lovely. Yeah, it's a beautiful email. And I love thinking about Vel that way. And I love that, like, you know, all of the characters who will ultimately are going to be the most rewarding and interesting to watch, you know, she has her moments of doubt too. Like, she's such a proponent and believer in a thing, but like when she and Mon are on the ceremonial wedding hike, Vel's like, no, there's work to be done. You know, has kind of like talked herself into how this could be the way things perspective. Yeah. And then Mon has to say to her, well, we have to live to do it though, don't we? And so the way that they're always helping each other to see the path forward. And now Vel can do that for Kleya, just as Cassian told Kleya she had in a way done it for him. It's like, that's really what an alliance is. Right? Yeah. It was beautiful. I really loved it. And it was just, I mean, it was really cool to hear, like, when Kleya is saying, you know, Luthen always said, you know your way out before you go, and I don't even know where I am. And Kleya's like, Vel's like, of course you do. Like, you're with friends.
You're with friends.
My friends everywhere. This is a tradecraft code line so that they can go about their missions. And it is like a hyperspace lane to a sense of belonging for them.
Come into the circle. Welcome into the circle, you know?
Really good.
Very good.
Really, really good. I ship it. I hope that they're happy together. I hope we get to find out what their life is like one day, but only if Tony Gilroy is interested in telling us. Okay.
All I want.
That'll be great.
Vel and Kleya do crimes for the rebellion.
Sign me up. Sign me up. I'm in. Speaking of doing crimes for the rebellion, this is where Draven comes by, brings K2 and Melshi back, and tells Cassie about Tivik. We get the I try exchange.
Melshi's like, they were tired of listening to this one, and K's like, that's a lie. It's very funny. Love a droid banter.
They had really great energy together. Yeah. Cassian's like, well, all right, like, how are we going to do this? And Draven and Mon go to convince Bail. They have to convince Bail. And then Bail goes to Cassian in the morning, and the drops of water are hitting the cup out on the windowsill. And then we realize that every night, speaking of uneasy sleep, Cassian Andor, who was worried about how Bix was sleeping, her dreams, is dreaming every night of the sister he lost.
I fail her again in my sleep. I'm failing in my sleep.
Whew. My God, this was heavy. Sleep well. No. Ever sleep well? No. Then we have something in common. This is like a very present idea in this conversation between Bail and Cassian, because when Bail's like, oh, what changed if I die fighting the Empire? I want to go down swinging. And Cassian's like, you and Luthen have more in common than you realize. This was his whole pitch. This was his whole thing.
And Bail's like, yeah, but did he look this good in a cloak? Yes, actually. Our listener Jack wrote in. I just want to include this. I'm not going to read this whole email because I just read a very long email, but Jack's email was just titled, "Does baseball exist in Star Wars?" And this is where I learned that to go down swinging is a baseball term. And I actually didn't know that. I thought, and it is, I corroborated Jack's email. I thought it was like, I don't know, just go down fighting, go down swinging your fist or your sword or whatever it is. I did not think it was go down swinging at the ball, but apparently it is. And I, like Jack, like the idea that there is some version of Alderaan-y baseball that they play and enjoy.
Me too. Yeah, Bale's got the MLB package, and he's got a fantasy league, and he's racking up Ks, but he's also a real fan, so he knows, like you don't want to strike out looking. No, can't strike out looking. Come on.
Is that the opposite? Strike out looking versus go down swinging?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because if you're looking, I mean, maybe you walk. You could earn a walk.
Yeah.
You do want to be patient and work the count, but at the end of the day, you got to take a cut, right?
And then Bale walks out to go home to Alderaan, and everything will be fine.
Things are fine. Things are fine.
How did you feel about Bale hitting him with a "May the Force be with you"?
Fine. Okay. Fine. I was like,
I think Bale
saying it is good. Yeah.
Bale, among the people we meet here who spent time with Jedi, makes more sense.
We're about to hear it a lot, obviously, in Rogue One. So another nice little bridge there. And speaking of our bridge, we get that montage, that closing montage that you said Gilroy was working back against. I did get a real kick out of him being like, and as if we could just not do it in slow motion. That would have been great. This made me fucking sob. I was just like a wreck watching this. This was so emotional, all of it. Cassian suiting up, putting the blaster on, watering Marva's plants. I thought this was wonderful. Melshi running with the soldiers, these people who will be loyal to him and will be loyal to Cassian and will stand with Cassian and who will stand with Jin. Like this group of people who, Bodhi's going to be able to say, it's going to be crowded, but we can fit. Let's go. Rogue One.
I love the Marva connection is so perfect. It's clear cut and perfect. We did get this heartbreaking email from Timothy who says, when it hits you on the third viewing that Cassian is watering those plants on Yavin because he wants them alive when the war is over and Bix returns to him. Pain!
Oh my God.
Yeah, Melshi, fun fact from StarWars.com, there are a couple little alien critters in that troop with Melshi who are also on Scarif. So yeah.
Beautiful. Well,
Melshi just running off the hangover, I guess.
Nah, he's spiking the morning coffee for sure.
He's just Rev-nogging through the rest of his short life. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Monvel sharing the meal, the new outfit. This is where we get the incredible Perrin
earrings.
I honestly can't believe that Perrin made the closing montage. This is just a little gift to us. This is the good shit right here. Kleya waking, looking out, smiling. Dedra in the Narkina jumpsuit and Cell on the floor, the red light, the floor is hot. Holy shit, this was
and her hair looks real fucked up now. No longer must.
Oh my God. The light's going out and we can just see her silhouette kind of shaking and hear the sobs. Rough. What Gilroy said on the watch was the box she's been trying to get out of her whole life.
Denise Goff, by the way, is just love this for Dedra. She's just this is where she belongs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because Denise, like us, does not enjoy fascists. So
love that we got one more glimpse of Saw Gerrera in the place there where we will meet him soon.
Yeah. So the Saw shot looks new. The Krennic shot is definitely from Rogue One. Because with love and respect, Ben Mendelsohn is a little younger in that shot of him looking at the Death Star that we get here.
Great stuff. Cass passes the Force healer, Joe.
This is great.
A little nod.
Yeah.
They lock eyes and he nods. I really liked this. I thought that was lovely. He gets into the U-Wing, tells Kay where they're going. And with respect to Tivik and Rogue One, a great film that we're going to talk about next week, we don't give a shit where they're going because here's what happens next. B. I was trying to think. I was really trying to think. It was cute when I, because Adam didn't watch the screeners with me. So when we were watching it on Tuesday night on Disney Plus, and this is his favorite show, so he was just like, riveted and so happy, but like really locked in. Like I kept looking at him and he wasn't looking at me at all. He was just locked in. And when B came on the screen, he was just like turned to me. It was really sweet.
We did get a lot of emails from people being like, how excited is Mallory that we got to see B?
I was so happy. And I felt like I should never have doubted it for a second. We deserved it. They knew we deserved it. They knew we wanted it.
They
and
gave
needed
B a
it.
little friend.
His buddy.
Talia is there. Talia, who we like so much from Mina Rao. She's like, I'm still
taking good care of my guy.
Taking care of B.
Yeah.
And also, B gets to hang out with Bix.
And Cassian Jr.
And Bix's baby.
I love knowing that Bix and B are together. It really makes me happy.
A lot to me.
I think this is as relieved as I've been to see a character again since Ghost at the end of Thrones. I was like, what? Seriously, I was like trying to think of what else I could this come close. I'm just so happy we got this little glimpse.
You're going to read a quote from Tony Gilroy about sort of Bix and her baby in a second. I just want to say really quickly, we got a lot of, I would say the majority of emails we got from our listeners, and we got hundreds of emails.
Yeah.
Were people who were actually like fairly uncomfortable, felt very passionately uncomfortable with this ending for Bix. They did not like that baby. And then plenty of people did love that ending for Bix and love that baby. But I would just say from my part, and I think some of the arguments are quite compelling. I think for my part, and this is actually might be damning because I'm like, it's not even about Bix for me. I'm like, B gets to grow up gets to grow up with this little boy. Like this little boy and B are gonna like be pals until, forever. B's gonna be fine forever.
B like helping to raise Cassian's child is deeply meaningful and moving to me, but also extremely sad. I mean, Cassian not knowing about this and not getting to meet his kid, and his kid not getting to meet Cassian is really heavy and hard. I thought this was it was interesting to think about Bix's decision through the lens of knowing that she was pregnant and Bix knowing that she was pregnant. I thought it's like there was something about not only the look on her face, she's looking up at the sky and she's smiling. There's this very, a pensive, but also a gentle tone to the score here, right? Like the
very
keys.
Pastoral. Yeah.
Yes. And it felt to me incredibly sad. I was sobbing. I was texting you and Chris. I was like inconsolable. I finished these episodes for so many reasons, but it felt like a really sad and mournful note and sorrowful note to know that they weren't going to share this life together, but also like a little hopeful one, new life, new possibility.
Oh, definitely trying to be and especially having her look at the sky and thinking about the final shots of Rogue One and thinking about this sunrise you'll never see. But, this idea that there's a sunrise that Luthen will never see, but Kleya will see it. And there's a sunrise that Cassian will never see, but
his kiddo
will see it. That relay race, passing the baton down generations and stuff like that. I can understand. I don't know. I'm actually at this point a little of two minds about it. I'm not mad about it at all. I wasn't like, Jesus, which a lot of our listeners were. But I'm compelled by some of their arguments, but I'm also just sort of thinking about B and that baby is really sweet to me. So, yeah.
Here's what Gilroy said. This was in his interview with James Hibbert at The Hollywood Reporter, he said, I think it makes his sacrifice that much more bitter, his being Cassian's, of course. And I think that for anybody who had any lingering doubts about Bix leaving in episode 9, it explains it for anybody who was hesitant about buying into that scene. And finally, ultimately, I was desperate to end on a hopeful note. Rebellions Are Built on Hope isn't just a t-shirt. It's a legit flame that a lot of people need to see. So hopefully I was ending on something that was upbeat, and it was important for me to do that.
It was very beautiful.
Tony.
It's not just a t-shirt.
What a show. My God.
Legit flame. Absolutely beautiful. And then we got a bunch of emails from people who wanted to note that you hear, over the closing credits, you hear the Rogue One score. And then you go into not just like any old Star Wars music. It's the music that plays over the medal ceremony at the end of A New Hope. Plays at the end of this. So again, in terms of like thinking of the end, I mean, obviously Star Wars goes ever on after A New Hope, but like thinking about the end of this chapter, this Death Star centric chapter of Star Wars storytelling, and thinking about like, all of these, none of these characters that we're seeing in the show are at that medal ceremony, but they all are in their own way there, you know?
And now we know.
Perrin, even you, Perrin.
Perrin was at the bar. He missed the ceremony. He was at the bar.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Andor.
Just devastated that it's over.
Me too. I'm crushed.
Delighted that we're going to watch Rogue One next week, though.
Same.
And A New Hope. And actually, can we next week do like our definitive, as of right now, Star Wars rankings and where everything sits and where Andor has
a movie TV mixed list?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Let's say top 10.
Really hard. Okay.
Top 10, and you're allowed to put shows in there.
I'll try. I'll try. It's hard. Mixing the movies and the shows is hard. I can do it. I think. It gets really hard at a certain point to be like, how am I weighing like these things against each other?
Do you want to do like,
can you do
seasons?
That's what I was going to
television?
ask. Is it specific season? No, I think that would even be harder. Actually, that's probably harder.
Well, it is. I mean, like the reason I would want to do it is I would like to peel Mandalorian season 1 away from the rest of the Mandalorian. But
Mando season 2 rules. Come on.
But it's not as good as Mando season 1. I think Mando season 1 is like way above the rest, and then season 3 is whatever. Anyway, Star Wars, we love it.
It's the best. It's been great to have a really, really, really wonderful time talking about Star Wars.
Yeah,
and spending time in a galaxy far, far away. I've loved it. I'll really miss this show. I'm glad we get to hang on for one more week, and then you know what? We don't need excuses to talk about Andor. We'll revisit it whenever we want.
Every May, at least.
Every May at least. All right, we did it.
We didn't break our record, man.
I know. I'm shocked but proud.
Despite all of our threats.
Shocked but proud. Thank you. Thank you to all the bad babies for sharing Andor with us, all of the incredible emails, listening to these incredibly long podcasts every week. We do not take it lightly. We cherish the time that you spend with us.
You know you have a lot of options when you fly.
Thank you to our little alliance here, our little rebel alliance here at the House of R. Steve Ahlman, Carlos Chiriboga, John Richter, producing this episode, producing these episodes. Thank you to Arjuna Ramgopal for his production supervision, and Jomi Adeniran. Yeah, feel better, Arjuna, for the work on the social for this episode and all of our Andor pods. Until next time. The tension mounts.